Scarlett Hayes should have known the moment her mother texted family dinner mandatory that she was walking into an execution. But she didn't expect the blade to come from her own sister's hand. She didn't expect her ex-fiancé, the man who'd ghosted her 3 weeks before their wedding, to sit across from her, fingers intertwined with Maya's, smiling like he'd won something. And she definitely didn't expect herself to lie so beautifully, so recklessly, that the entire room went silent. "I'm with the head of the Mafia," she said. They laughed. Until the door opened, until Lorenzo Moretti walked in like a bullet finding its mark. He didn't ask if she needed saving, he just took her hand, and the lie became the most dangerous truth of her life. If you want to see how far a single lie can drag someone into the dark, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Quote, "The restaurant smelled like overpriced wine and her mother's disappointment. Scarlett Hayes sat with her spine pressed into the velvet booth, hands folded in her lap like a schoolgirl waiting for punishment. Across the table, her younger sister Maya giggled, high-pitched, performative, the kind of sound that used to be endearing before it became a weapon. Next to Maya, close enough that their shoulders touched, sat Evan Cross, Scarlett's ex-fiancé. The man who had vanished 3 weeks before their wedding with nothing but a voicemail that started with "I can't do this" and ended with dead air. That was 8 months ago. Now he was here, engaged, to her sister. Scarlett's mother, Patricia Hayes, sat at the head of the table in a cream blazer that probably cost more than Scarlett's rent. She lifted her wine glass, lips curving into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Isn't this lovely? All of us together." Scarlett's father didn't look up from his phone. "Yeah," Scarlett said quietly. "Lovely." Maya leaned forward, diamond glinting on her finger. A ring Scarlett had never seen but somehow recognized. The same jeweler, the same style, just bigger. "We wanted you to hear it from us first," Maya said, voice dripping with false sincerity, "before the engagement photos go public." Scarlett's jaw tightened. She reached for her water glass, fingers trembling just enough that she had to grip it with both hands. "Congratulations." Evan finally looked at her. His face was the same, sharp jawline, dark eyes, that infuriating calm that used to make her feel safe. Now it just made her want to throw something. "Scarlett," he said, and his tone was soft like he was talking to a child. "I hope this doesn't make things awkward." She laughed. It came out jagged. "Awkward? No. Why would it be awkward?" Her mother's fork clinked against her plate, a warning. Maya's hand slid over Evan's. "We didn't plan this, you know. It just happened." "Right," Scarlett said. "Things just happen." Evan's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. Not quite pity. Something worse. He leaned in slightly, voice low enough that only Scarlett could hear. "You were always going to be the placeholder, Scarlett. You had to know that." Her breath caught. The words hit like a fist to the sternum, brutal and precise. She should have stood up, walked out, let them have their triumph in peace. Instead, she smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who just decided to burn the whole room down. She set her glass down carefully, leaned back, and let her voice carry, loud, clear, deliberate. "I'm with the head of the Mafia." The table went still. Her father looked up from his phone. Her mother's hand froze mid-reach for the wine bottle. Maya blinked, confused. Evan's expression shifted, amusement flickering into something sharper. Then her mother laughed, polite, dismissive. "Scarlett, don't be ridiculous." "I'm serious," Scarlett said, and the steadiness in her own voice surprised her. She wasn't even sure where the words had come from, some dark, reckless part of her brain that had been dormant until this exact moment. "Lorenzo Moretti, you've heard of him, right?" Evan's smirk deepened. "The Lorenzo Moretti? Come on, Scarlett, that's a little desperate, even for you." She held his gaze, didn't blink. "Believe what you want." Her mother's laugh grew louder, forced. A few heads at nearby tables turned. "Sweetheart, this isn't funny. You're embarrassing yourself." Scarlett opened her mouth to respond, to double down, to make it worse, to do anything but sit there and take it, when the door to the restaurant opened. The shift was immediate. The hostess straightened. The low hum of conversation near the entrance died. Even the pianist hesitated, fingers stumbling over the keys before catching the rhythm again. Scarlett didn't turn around. She didn't need to. She felt him before she saw him, a presence that moved through the room like a cold front, sharp and undeniable. Footsteps, measured, unhurried, crossed the marble floor. She heard the soft rustle of expensive fabric, the faint creak of leather. Her pulse kicked up, instinct screaming at her to look, but she kept her eyes on Evan, watching his face change. The smirk vanished. His jaw tightened. His gaze flicked past her shoulder and something in his expression cracked, just for a second, before he smoothed it over. Then a voice, low and edged with something that could have been amusement or threat, spoke from directly behind her. Scarlett. Her stomach dropped. She turned. Lorenzo Moretti stood less than 2 feet away, hands in the pockets of a charcoal suit that fit like it had been tailored on his body. He was taller than she'd imagined, because, of course she'd imagined, everyone in the city had heard the name even if they'd never seen the face. Dark hair, sharp features, a jawline that could cut glass. But it was his eyes that made her forget how to breathe. Cold. Unreadable. Fixed on her like she was the only person in the room. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. "I'm sorry I'm late," he said, and his voice was smooth, controlled, the kind of voice that didn't ask for permission. He extended a hand toward her. Not a request. A command. Scarlett stared at him. Her brain screamed that this wasn't real, that she'd said his name as a joke, a desperate lie, and now some stranger was playing along for reasons she couldn't begin to understand. But her body moved before her mind caught up. She placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm, firm, possessive. He pulled her to her feet in one smooth motion, and suddenly she was standing close enough to smell the faint trace of cologne, something dark and expensive. His gaze dropped to her face, and for a moment she thought she saw something flicker in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or calculation. Then he looked past her, toward the table. "You must be the family," Lorenzo said. His tone was polite. Empty. The kind of politeness that felt like a door closing. Her mother's mouth opened, closed. No sound came out. Maya's eyes were wide, her hand still clutching Evan's. Evan didn't move, didn't speak, but his knuckles had gone white where they gripped the edge of the table. Lorenzo's hand shifted to the small of Scarlett's back, a touch so light it could have been an accident. But it wasn't. She knew it wasn't. "We should go," he said quietly, voice only for her. She nodded. She didn't trust herself to speak. He guided her past the table, past her mother's frozen expression and her father's slack-jawed stare, past Maya's whispered, "What the hell?" and Evan's silent, simmering fury. The entire restaurant watched them leave. Scarlett felt every pair of eyes like pinpricks on her skin, but Lorenzo moved as if they didn't exist, as if the only thing that mattered was the woman at his side. The door swung shut behind them, and the cold night air hit her like a slap. A black car idled at the curb. The driver stood beside it, expressionless, and opened the rear door without a word. Lorenzo's hand stayed on her back, steady, guiding her inside. She slid onto soft leather seats, and he followed, settling beside her with an ease that suggested he'd done this 1,000 times before. The door closed. The locks engaged with a soft click. The driver pulled into traffic, smooth and silent. Scarlett's hands were shaking. She pressed them into her lap, trying to steady her breathing. "I don't—" Her voice cracked. She swallowed hard. "I don't understand. Why did you—" "You said my name," Lorenzo said. He wasn't looking at her. His gaze was fixed on the passing city lights, expression unreadable. In a room full of people, loudly. "I know, I didn't think— You didn't think I'd hear about it?" He turned to her then, and the weight of his attention was almost physical. "Or you didn't think I'd show up?" She stared at him. "Both." His mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile. "You're honest. I like that." "I'm confused." "I know." The car turned onto a street she didn't recognize. Tall buildings rose on either side, glass and steel catching the glow of streetlights. Scarlett's pulse hammered in her throat. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere quiet." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you're getting right now." She should have been afraid. Every rational part of her brain screamed that she'd just gotten into a car with a man she didn't know, a man whose name was whispered in the same breath as violence and power and things people didn't talk about in daylight. But she wasn't afraid. She was something else, Something sharp and reckless and alive in a way she hadn't felt in months. You didn't have to do that, she said quietly. Lorenzo's gaze stayed on her. Do what? Play along. Pretend. I'm not pretending. The words hung in the air between them, heavy and undeniable. Scarlett's throat tightened. You don't even know me. Not yet. The car slowed, pulling up in front of a sleek high-rise that stretched into the night sky like a blade. The driver got out, opened Lorenzo's door. He stepped onto the sidewalk and turned back, offering his hand again. She took it. He led her through a lobby of black marble and low lighting, past a security desk where the guard didn't look up, didn't ask questions. The elevator ride was silent. Lorenzo stood beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat of him, but he didn't speak, didn't explain, just watched the numbers climb. The doors opened onto a penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Minimalist furniture, dark wood, everything precise, controlled, expensive. Scarlett stepped inside and the door closed behind them with a soft hiss. She turned to face him. You're really him. Yes. And you just decided to show up at a random restaurant because I said your name? Lorenzo shrugged off his jacket, draping it over the back of a chair. It wasn't random. Her stomach twisted. What does that mean? He crossed to the bar in the corner, poured 2 glasses of something amber. He held one out to her. She didn't take it. It means, he said, setting the glass on the table beside her, that you walked into a situation you didn't understand and said something that got my attention. Why? Because people don't usually lie about being with me, and when they do, they don't do it in front of witnesses. He took a slow sip of his drink, studying her over the rim. You're either very brave or very stupid. I was angry. I noticed. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware of how small she felt in this space, how out of place. So what happens now? Lorenzo set his glass down. He moved closer, slow and deliberate, until he was standing directly in front of her. He didn't touch her, didn't need to. The air between them felt charged, electric. Now, he said quietly, you decide if you want to keep lying or if you want to make it true. Her breath hitched. What? You told them you were with me. That's a claim. A dangerous one. His gaze dropped to her mouth, then back to her eyes. I could walk away, let you deal with the fallout. Or I could make sure no one ever questions it again. Scarlett's heart slammed against her ribs. Why would you do that? His expression didn't change. Because I want to. The honesty of it, the bluntness, knocked the air out of her lungs. She opened her mouth, closed it. No words came. Lorenzo stepped back, giving her space. You don't have to decide tonight, but you should know what you're walking into if you say yes. And what is that? My world. He turned toward the window, silhouette dark against the city lights. It's not kind. It's not forgiving. And once you're in, there's no going back. She should have run, should have called a car, gone home, buried herself under blankets and pretended this night never happened. Instead, she picked up the glass he'd poured for her and took a drink. The whiskey burned down her throat, sharp and grounding. Tell me the rules, she said. Lorenzo glanced at her, something shifting in his eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or approval. Rule 1, he said. You don't lie to me. Okay. Rule 2. You don't leave without telling me where you're going. Her brow furrowed. That sounds like a prison. It sounds like safety. He crossed his arms, leaning against the window. You just claimed to be with the most dangerous man in the city. That makes you a target. Whether you meant it or not, the weight of that settled over her, cold and real. I didn't think about that. I know. She took another sip, letting the burn steady her nerves. What's rule 3? Lorenzo's gaze locked onto hers, and for the first time since he'd walked into that restaurant, she saw something unguarded, something raw. You trust me, he said, even when you don't understand. Scarlett held his stare. Her pulse thundered in her ears, every instinct at war with itself. This was insane. This was reckless. This was exactly the kind of thing that ended badly. But she was so tired of being careful. Okay, she said. Lorenzo's mouth curved into the faintest hint of a smile. Okay. The first night, Scarlett didn't sleep. Lorenzo had shown her to a guest room, sleek, modern, a bed that looked like it cost more than her car. He told her she could leave in the morning if she wanted. No pressure, no obligation. But she didn't want to leave. She lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment Evan's face had crumbled when Lorenzo walked in. The shock, the fear, the realization that Scarlett wasn't the broken, discarded thing he'd left behind. For the first time in 8 months, she felt powerful. She got out of bed around 3 in the morning, padding barefoot into the main room. The city sprawled beyond the windows, a sea of light and shadow. She found Lorenzo standing in the same spot he'd been hours ago, hands in his pockets, staring out at the skyline. He didn't turn when she approached. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "No. Neither can I." She stopped a few feet away, wrapping her arms around herself. "Do you ever?" "Sometimes." He glanced at her, and in the dim light, his face looked softer, less controlled. "Not often." "Why not?" "Because the people who want me dead don't take nights off." The bluntness of it should have scared her. Instead, it grounded her. This wasn't a fairy tale. This was real, sharp-edged, and brutal. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Showing up tonight?" Lorenzo considered the question. "No." "Why not?" "Because you needed someone to show up, and I was tired of watching from the sidelines." She frowned. "What does that mean?" He turned to face her fully, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. "It means I've known who you are for longer than you think." Her stomach dropped. "What?" Lorenzo moved closer, slow and deliberate. "Your ex-fiancé, Evan Cross. He works for a man named Richard Delano. Delano handles clean money for dirty people, including some of my competitors." Scarlett's mind raced, trying to piece it together. "You're saying Evan is involved in—" "I'm saying he's a middleman for people who would very much like to see me gone." Lorenzo's voice was calm, almost casual. "And when I heard he was engaged to someone new, I looked into it. Found out it was your sister. Found out about you." Her mouth went dry. "You've been watching me." "I've been keeping an eye on people connected to my enemies. You were collateral. Until tonight. Until I said your name." "Until you said my name, too, God," he agreed. "And turned yourself into something more interesting." Scarlett's hands clenched into fists at her sides. "So this is what? Some kind of strategy? You're using me to get to Evan?" "I'm using the situation to my advantage. That's what I do." He stepped closer, and she had to tilt her head back to hold his gaze. "But I'm also giving you something you want." "And what's that?" "Revenge." The word hung between them, dark and seductive. "I don't want revenge," she said, but her voice wavered. Lorenzo's mouth curved. "Liar." She swallowed hard. "Even if I did, what would that look like?" "It would look like you walking into every room with your head high, knowing that the man who broke you is afraid of the man standing beside you. It would look like your family realizing they underestimated you. It would look like you taking back everything they tried to make you believe you didn't deserve." His hand lifted, fingers brushing a strand of hair from her face. The touch was light, fleeting, but it sent a jolt through her. "And it would look like you deciding, for once, that you matter more than their approval." Scarlett's throat tightened. She wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, that she didn't care what they thought, that she'd moved on. But she couldn't, because he was right. "What do you get out of this?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Lorenzo's hand dropped. "Information, access, a way to keep my enemies close without them realizing it." He paused. "And maybe something else." "What?" His gaze dropped to her mouth, then back to her eyes. "I haven't decided yet." Her pulse spiked. She should have stepped back, put distance between them, but she didn't move. "This is insane," she said. "Yes, I should leave." "You should." "But I'm not going to." Lorenzo's smile was slow, dangerous. "I know." The next morning, Scarlett woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. She found Lorenzo in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, pouring 2 cups from an expensive-looking espresso machine. He glanced up when she entered, and for a moment she saw something almost domestic in the scene. Almost normal. Then she remembered who he was. "Sleep well?" he asked, sliding a cup toward her. "No." "Good. You're learning." She took the coffee, letting the warmth seep into her hands. "What happens now?" "Now you go home. Get your things. Come back." Her brow furrowed. "You want me to move in?" "I want you where I can see you, where I know you're safe." He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Your ex knows you're with me now. That makes you a liability. To him, to his boss, to anyone who thinks they can use you to get to me." "I didn't ask for this." "You did. The moment you said my name." She hated that he was right. Hated how easily he'd flipped her life upside down and made it feel inevitable. "What if I say no?" she asked. Lorenzo's expression didn't change. "Then I'll have someone watch your apartment, follow you to work, make sure nothing happens to you." He paused. "But you'll still be alone, and you'll still be wondering what could have been different if you'd stayed." Scarlett stared at him, frustration and something else, something hotter, more dangerous, coiling in her chest. "You're very sure of yourself." "I have to be." She took a sip of coffee, buying herself time to think. This was crazy. Moving in with a man she barely knew, a man whose world was built on violence and control. But going back to her empty apartment, to her quiet, suffocating life, felt worse. "One condition," she said finally. Lorenzo raised an eyebrow. "I don't negotiate. You do now." She set her cup down, met his gaze head on. "I need to know you're not going to hurt Evan, or my sister, or anyone in my family." His jaw tightened. "I don't hurt innocent people." "That's not what I asked." For a long moment, Lorenzo didn't speak. Then slowly he nodded. "I won't touch them, unless they come after you first." It wasn't the answer she wanted, but it was the best she was going to get. "Okay," she said. "Okay." Basic. By noon, Scarlett was back at her apartment, packing a suitcase with shaking hands. Her phone buzzed on the bed. A text from Maya. "What the hell was that last night? Mom is losing her mind. Call me." Scarlett ignored it. Another buzz. This time, her mother. "We need to talk. This is unacceptable. Delete." A third. "Evan, you're making a mistake." She stared at the message, jaw clenched, then typed back, "Fuck off. Send." She shoved the phone into her pocket and zipped the suitcase shut. When she turned, a man was standing in her doorway. She screamed. He didn't move. Tall, broad-shouldered, expressionless. "Mr. Moretti sent me," he said, voice flat. "I'm here to escort you back." Scarlett's heart hammered. "You couldn't have knocked?" "I did." "You didn't hear." She grabbed her suitcase, brushing past him into the hallway. "This is my life now, isn't it? Strange men in my apartment." "You'll get used to it." She didn't answer. The drive back to the penthouse was silent. When they arrived, Lorenzo was on the phone, pacing near the windows. He glanced up when she entered, eyes tracking her movement, then returned to his conversation. "I don't care what he thinks. Make it clear that if he tries again, I'll handle it personally." He ended the call and turned to her. "Settled?" "As settled as I can be." He crossed to her, taking the suitcase from her hand. "Good. You'll stay in the guest room for now, unless you'd prefer—" "Guest room is fine," she said quickly. His mouth twitched. Noted. He carried her suitcase down the hall, and she followed, feeling like she'd just stepped off a cliff and was waiting to see if she'd land or fall. Masag. That night, Scarlett learned the first rule of Lorenzo's world. Silence carried more weight than words. They ate dinner together. Pasta, wine, conversation that stayed surface level. He asked about her job, graphic design, freelance, barely paying rent. She asked about his. He smiled and said logistics, which was the least convincing lie she'd ever heard. Neither of them pushed, but the tension was there, in the way his gaze lingered too long, in the way her pulse kicked up whenever he got too close. After dinner, she retreated to her room, but sleep didn't come. She lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering what the hell she'd gotten herself into. A soft knock on the door made her sit up. "Come in," she said. Lorenzo stepped inside, silhouette framed by the hallway light. "Can't sleep again?" "No." He moved to the chair by the window, settling into it like he belonged there. "It gets easier." "Does it?" "No, but you learn to live with it." She pulled her knees to her chest, wrapping her arms around them. "Why are you really doing this?" "I told you, no. Not the strategy, not the revenge. Why did you walk into that restaurant? You could have ignored it. Let me crash and burn. But you didn't." Lorenzo was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. "Because I know what it's like to be underestimated, to be written off. And I saw you sitting at that table surrounded by people who should have protected you, and all I could think was, she deserves better." Scarlett's throat tightened. "You don't know me." "Not yet," he said again. "But I will." He stood, moved toward the door, paused. "Get some sleep, Scarlett. Tomorrow, things get complicated." "More complicated than this?" He glanced back, and the look in his eyes sent a shiver down her spine. "Much more." The door closed softly behind him. Scarlett lay back down, pulse racing, and stared at the ceiling until the sky outside began to lighten. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, didn't know if she was making the biggest mistake of her life or the smartest decision she'd ever made. But for the first time in 8 months, she didn't feel invisible. And that, she realized, was worth almost anything. The next day began with a phone call. Scarlett was in the kitchen, attempting to make coffee without breaking Lorenzo's absurdly expensive espresso machine, when his phone rang. He answered on the second ring, voice clipped. "What is it?" A pause. His expression darkened. "When?" Another pause. "No, I'll handle it." He ended the call and looked at Scarlett. "Get dressed. We're leaving in 10 minutes. "Where are we going?" "To remind some people that you're not a target, you're off limits." Her stomach twisted. "What does that mean?" "It means someone's already testing boundaries." His jaw tightened. "And I'm about to make an example." She should have been afraid, but all she felt was a strange electric thrill, because for the first time in her life, someone was willing to fight for her, even if that someone was the most dangerous man in the city. The black sedan cut through morning traffic like a knife, silent except for the low hum of the engine and the occasional crackle of the driver's radio. Scarlett sat in the back beside Lorenzo, hands pressed flat against her thighs to keep them from shaking. She'd thrown on jeans and a sweater in under 8 minutes, barely had time to run a brush through her hair before Lorenzo's hand had landed on the small of her back, guiding her out the door with the kind of urgency that made questions feel stupid. Now, watching the city blur past the tinted windows, she wished she'd asked anyway. "Who tested boundaries?" she said, voice cutting through the silence. Lorenzo didn't look at her. His gaze stayed fixed on the street ahead, jaw tight, fingers drumming a slow rhythm against his knee. "Someone who should have known better." That's not an answer. It's the one you're getting until we arrive. She bit back the frustration rising in her throat. "You said I had to trust you. That goes both ways." His head turned then, eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made her pulse stutter. "Trust doesn't mean I tell you everything the second it happens. It means you believe I'm handling it. And if I don't, then you're wasting both our time." The words landed like a slap. Scarlett opened her mouth to fire back, but the car slowed, pulling up in front of a building she recognized. Her stomach dropped. "No," she said. "Absolutely not." Lorenzo was already opening his door. "Stay in the car. This is my office." "I know." "Lorenzo, mamamo." He was out before she could finish, moving around to her side with the driver already holding the door open. Scarlett didn't move. She stared at the glass entrance to the co-working space where she rented a desk 3 days a week, where she'd spent the last 8 months rebuilding her portfolio and pretending her life wasn't falling apart. Lorenzo leaned in, one hand braced on the roof of the car. "Scarlett, out." "What are you doing?" "Making sure the people in your life understand that you're no longer accessible." Her heart hammered. "You can't just—" "I can. And I am." His voice dropped, softer, but no less firm. "Now get out of the car, or I'll carry you." She believed him. Scarlett climbed out, legs unsteady, and Lorenzo's hand found the small of her back again. The touch was light, almost casual, but it burned through the thin fabric of her sweater like a brand. He guided her toward the entrance, and the driver fell into step behind them, silent and immovable. Inside, the lobby was bright and open, filled with freelancers hunched over laptops and the low hum of productivity. A few heads turned as they entered. Scarlett felt the weight of their stares, the quick once-over, the double take when they registered Lorenzo. He didn't acknowledge them, just kept walking, steering her toward the elevator. "Which floor?" he asked. "Third. But Lorenzo, you need to tell me what's happening." The elevator doors slid open. He stepped inside, pulling her with him. The driver stayed in the lobby. As the doors closed, Lorenzo finally looked at her. "Someone left a message at your desk this morning," he said. "A photograph. You and me leaving the restaurant. With a note." Her breath caught. "What did it say?" "She's prettier than the last one." The words hit like ice water. Scarlett's hands went numb. "The last one?" Lorenzo's expression didn't change, but something dark flickered behind his eyes. "A woman I was involved with 2 years ago. She made the mistake of thinking association with me made her untouchable." He paused. "She was wrong." "What happened to her?" "She's alive, living in another city under a different name." His jaw tightened. "But she learned that being close to me comes with consequences." The elevator chimed. Third floor. Scarlett didn't move. "You're saying someone's threatening me because I'm with you." "I'm saying someone's stupid enough to try." Lorenzo stepped out into the hallway, glancing back. "Which is why we're here, to make sure it doesn't happen again." She followed, legs moving on autopilot. The co-working space was an open floor plan, desks scattered throughout, a few private offices along the back wall. Her desk was near the window, a corner spot she'd fought for because the light was good and it felt less claustrophobic. Evan was sitting in her chair. Scarlett stopped so fast Lorenzo nearly ran into her. His hand tightened on her back, steadying her, and she felt the shift in his posture, the way his entire body went still, predatory. Evan looked up, smiled. "Hey, Scarlett." Her mouth went dry. "What are you doing here?" "Waiting for you." He stood, hands sliding into his pockets, gaze flicking to Lorenzo with something that might have been amusement or challenge. "Wanted to have a conversation, private." Lorenzo's voice was flat. "Leave." Evan's smile widened. "I'm talking to Scarlett, not you." "I don't care who you think you're talking to. You have 10 seconds to walk out of here before I make you." The air in the room shifted. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. Scarlett felt the weight of a dozen pairs of eyes, the tension coiling tighter with every passing second. Evan didn't move. "You're making a scene." "I'm giving you a choice." Lorenzo stepped forward, putting himself between Scarlett and Evan. "Take it." For a moment, Evan held his ground. Then his gaze dropped to Scarlett, and the false charm cracked just enough for her to see the anger underneath. "You really think he's going to protect you? You're a game to him, a distraction." "And what was I to you?" Scarlett's voice came out sharper than she intended, cutting through the quiet. "A placeholder, right? That's what you said." Evan's jaw tightened. "I was trying to be honest." "You were trying to hurt me. There's a difference." "Jesus, Scarlett, you think this guy is better? You know what he does, right? The people he's killed, the lives he's destroyed?" Evan took a step closer, ignoring Lorenzo entirely. "You're playing dress-up in a world you don't understand, and when it falls apart, and it will, don't come crying to me." Lorenzo moved so fast Scarlett barely saw it. 1 second he was standing beside her, the next his hand was around Evan's throat, slamming him back against the desk hard enough to rattle the keyboard. "Lorenzo," Scarlett started, but he cut her off with a single look. Evan clawed at Lorenzo's wrist, face going red. "Let go." "You're going to listen very carefully," Lorenzo said, voice low and calm in a way that made Scarlett's skin crawl. "You don't talk to her. You don't look at her. You don't leave threatening notes on her desk or send your boss's errand boys to follow her home. You stay the fuck away. Understand?" Evan's eyes bulged. He managed a nod. Lorenzo held him for another beat, then released him. Evan collapsed back into the chair, gasping, hand pressed to his throat. "If I see you again," Lorenzo said, stepping back, "I won't be this patient." He turned, hand finding Scarlett's arm, and guided her toward the elevator. She didn't resist. Couldn't. Her legs felt like they were moving through water, disconnected from her body. Behind them, she heard Evan coughing, someone asking if he was okay, the low murmur of shock rippling through the room. The elevator doors closed. Silence. Scarlett stared at the brushed steel wall, pulse roaring in her ears. You could have killed him. I could have, Lorenzo agreed. I didn't. Because I asked you not to. Because it wasn't necessary. Yet. She turned on him, anger finally breaking through the shock. You can't go around choking people because they piss you off. I can do whatever I want. That's the point. His gaze was steady, unflinching. And he wasn't just pissing me off. He was threatening you. He didn't threaten me. He was being an asshole. He left a photograph on your desk with a message designed to make you afraid. That's a threat. Lorenzo's voice dropped, colder. And if you think I'm going to stand by and let anyone make you feel unsafe, you don't understand what this is. Then explain it to me. Because right now, it feels like you're using me as an excuse to settle a score. The elevator chimed. Ground floor. Lorenzo didn't move. You want the truth? Yes. The truth is Evan's boss, Richard Delano, has been trying to undermine my operations for 6 months. He's careful, smart, never gets his hands dirty, but he's been testing boundaries, pushing to see how far he can go before I push back. Lorenzo stepped closer, and Scarlett's back hit the elevator wall. And then you walked into my life and gave me the perfect excuse to send a message. Her breath hitched. So this is strategy. It started that way. His hand came up, fingers brushing the side of her face, and the tenderness of the gesture didn't match the hardness in his eyes. It's not anymore. What is it now? I don't know yet. The doors started to close. Lorenzo's hand shot out, holding them open, and he stepped back, giving her space. Come on, we're not done. To come. They drove in silence for 20 minutes before Scarlett realized they weren't going back to the penthouse. The city gave way to quieter streets, then industrial blocks, warehouses with rusted siding and graffiti-tagged walls. The driver pulled into an alley, navigating around potholes and debris, and stopped in front of a nondescript metal door. Lorenzo got out. Scarlett followed, unease curling in her stomach. Where are we? She asked. Somewhere you need to see. He knocked twice. The door opened and a man Scarlett didn't recognize stepped aside, nodding at Lorenzo. Inside was a narrow hallway, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the faint smell of oil and something metallic she couldn't place. They walked in silence until they reached another door. Lorenzo paused, hand on the knob, and looked at her. What you're about to see, he said quietly, you can't unsee. If you want to walk away, do it now. Scarlett's throat tightened. What's in there? Proof that this isn't a game. He opened the door. The room beyond was small concrete walls, a single chair in the center. A man sat in it, hands zip-tied behind his back, face bruised and swollen. Blood crusted his upper lip. He looked up when they entered, eyes widening when he saw Lorenzo. Please, the man said, voice hoarse. I didn't know. You knew exactly what you were doing. Lorenzo's tone was conversational, almost bored. He crossed to a table against the wall, picking up a folder. You work for Delano. He sent you to Scarlett's office to leave a message, to scare her. The man's gaze flicked to Scarlett. I'm sorry. I was just following orders. Following orders doesn't absolve you. Lorenzo opened the folder, pulling out a photograph, the same one the man had left on Scarlett's desk. Her and Lorenzo leaving the restaurant, the image grainy but unmistakable. Who took this? I don't know. Delano gave it to me, told me to leave it where she'd find it. And the note? He wrote it. Lorenzo set the photo down, expression unreadable. See, that's the problem. You came into my city, threatened someone under my protection, and now you're sitting here telling me it's not your fault. He leaned against the table, arms crossed. That's not how this works. The man's breathing quickened. What do you want from me? I want you to deliver a message to Delano. Lorenzo's voice was calm, measured. Tell him that if he ever comes near Scarlett Hayes again, if he so much as thinks about her, I will dismantle everything he's built, piece by piece, starting with him. I'll tell him, I swear. Good. Lorenzo straightened, nodding to someone Scarlett hadn't noticed standing in the corner. The man stepped forward, cutting the zip ties. You have 24 hours to leave the city. After that, you're fair game. The man scrambled to his feet, stumbling toward the door. He didn't look back. When the door closed, Scarlett finally found her voice. You're just letting him go? He's a messenger. Killing him would be pointless. Lorenzo turned to her, and the coldness in his eyes made her stomach twist. But now Delano knows I'm serious, and so do you. She stared at him, heart pounding. You wanted me to see that. Yes. Why? Because you need to understand what you're in the middle of. This isn't a romantic gesture, Scarlett. It's war, and you're standing in the crossfire. Her hands clenched into fists. Then why keep me here? Why not just let me go? Lorenzo crossed to her slow and deliberate until there was barely a foot between them. Because you're already in it. Whether you stay with me or not, Delano knows your name. He knows your face. He knows you matter to me. His hand lifted, cupping her jaw, thumb brushing her cheekbone. And the only way I can keep you safe is if you're close enough for me to protect. Scarlett's breath came shallow, fast. You're using me. I'm keeping you alive. Same thing. No. His grip tightened just slightly. It's not. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Scarlett pulled away, stepping back, wrapping her arms around herself. I need air. There's no air here. Just concrete and bad decisions. Lorenzo's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Welcome to my world. Thoughts. They didn't speak on the drive back. Scarlett sat pressed against the window, forehead against the cool glass, watching the city scroll past in a blur of steel and shadow. Her mind replayed the scene in the warehouse, the man's swollen face, the fear in his eyes, the casual way Lorenzo had dismantled him with words alone. She should have been horrified, disgusted, ready to run. Instead, all she felt was a strange, simmering anger, not at Lorenzo, at herself, because part of her, a part she didn't want to acknowledge, had felt powerful standing in that room, watching a man beg because he'd tried to scare her, knowing that Lorenzo had done it not out of obligation, but because he wanted to. When they reached the penthouse, she went straight to her room and shut the door. Stayed there for hours, lying on the bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of the knot in her chest. A soft knock broke the silence. Go away, she called. The door opened anyway. Lorenzo stepped inside, holding 2 glasses of wine. He crossed to the chair by the window, setting one glass on the table beside the bed. I'm not in the mood, Scarlett said. I know. He sat taking a slow sip from his glass. But you're spiraling, and that's not going to help either of us. She sat up, glaring at him. You dragged me to a warehouse and showed me a man you'd beaten because he scared me. What part of that am I supposed to process calmly? I didn't beat him. My people did. There's a difference. Oh well, that makes it so much better. Lorenzo's expression didn't change. You're angry. No shit. Good. Anger means you're paying attention. He set his glass down, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. You want to know why I showed you that? Because I need you to stop seeing this as some kind of temporary arrangement. You're not a guest here, Scarlett. You're part of this now. And if you don't understand the stakes, you're going to make a mistake that gets you killed. Her throat tightened. I didn't ask for this. You asked for protection the second you said my name in that restaurant. Everything after that is just follow-through. That's not fair. Fair doesn't exist in my world. Only survival. She grabbed the wine glass, taking a long drink just to have something to do with her hands. What if I leave? You won't. How do you know? Lorenzo stood, crossing to the bed. He didn't sit, just looked down at her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Because you're too smart to go back to a life where people like Evan and your mother get to decide your worth. Because you felt something in that warehouse, and it scared you, but it also made you feel alive. He paused. And because you don't want to leave. Scarlett's pulse hammered. You don't know what I want. Then tell me I'm wrong. She opened her mouth, closed it. No words came. Lorenzo's hand lifted, fingers brushing a strand of hair from her face. The touch was gentle, almost reverent. I'm not a good man, Scarlett. I won't pretend to be, but I will keep you safe. And I will make sure no one ever underestimates you again." Her breath hitched. "Why does that matter to you?" "Because I know what it's like to be invisible. And I see you." The words hung in the air between them, heavy and undeniable. Scarlett set the glass down, hands shaking. "I need time." "Take it." Lorenzo stepped back, heading for the door. He paused in the doorway, glancing back. "But don't take too long. The world doesn't wait for anyone to catch up." The door closed softly behind him. Scarlett lay back down, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of his words settle over her like a second skin. She didn't sleep that night either. The next 3 days passed in a strange, suspended quiet. Lorenzo gave her space, didn't push, didn't ask questions, just existed in the same space, moving through the penthouse like a shadow, always there, never intrusive. Scarlett tried to work, opened her laptop, pulled up design files, stared at the screen until her eyes blurred. Nothing came. Her mind kept circling back to the warehouse, to Evan's face when Lorenzo's hand closed around his throat, to the photograph on her desk. On the 4th day, her phone rang. Maya. Scarlett stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the decline button. Then, against every instinct, she answered. "What?" "Jesus, Scarlett, finally." Maya's voice was sharp, stressed. "Where the hell have you been? Mom's been calling you non-stop." "I've been busy." "Busy? Busy with what? That psycho you're apparently dating?" Scarlett's jaw tightened. "Don't call him that." "Oh my God, you're serious. You're actually serious." Maya's laugh was brittle, almost hysterical. "Do you have any idea what you're doing? Evan told me what happened at your office. Lorenzo Moretti choked him, Scarlett. Choked him. In front of people. Evan left a threatening note on my desk. Lorenzo was protecting me." "Protecting you? He's using you. Can't you see that? And what was Evan doing? What were you doing?" Silence. Then quieter. "That's not fair. Isn't it?" Scarlett stood, pacing to the window. "You're engaged to the man who left me 3 weeks before our wedding. You brought him to a family dinner and sat there smiling while he humiliated me, and now you're calling to lecture me about my choices? Scarlett, no, you don't get to do this. You don't get to pretend you care now." "I do care. You're my sister." "Then act like it." Scarlett's voice cracked. "Because right now the only person who's actually protecting me is the man you're so terrified of." Maya was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, almost pleading. "He's dangerous, Scarlett. Please, just come home. We can figure this out. I am home." She ended the call before Maya could respond. Her hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the window, forehead against the glass, trying to steady her breathing. "That sounded rough." Scarlett spun. Lorenzo stood in the doorway, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "How long have you been standing there?" "Long enough." He pushed off the doorframe, crossing to her. "Your sister's worried." "My sister's a hypocrite." "Maybe, but she's not wrong about me being dangerous." Scarlett looked up at him, searching his face. "Are you trying to scare me away?" "I'm trying to make sure you know what you're choosing." "I know." "Do you?" Lorenzo's hand came up, cupping her jaw, tilting her face toward his. "Because once you cross this line, Scarlett, there's no going back. You'll be mine, publicly, permanently, and everyone who wants to hurt me will see you as a target." Her heart slammed against her ribs. "And if I'm okay with that, then you're either very brave or very stupid. You've said that before." "It's still true." She stepped closer, closing the distance between them until she could feel the heat radiating off his body. "What if I don't care?" Lorenzo's gaze dropped to her mouth, then back to her eyes. Then we're both in trouble. The air between them felt electric, charged. Scarlett's pulse thundered in her ears, every nerve in her body screaming at her to move, forward or back she didn't know, didn't care. Lorenzo's thumb brushed across her lower lip, slow and deliberate. "Tell me to stop." "No." His mouth curved into a dangerous smile. "Bad decision." Then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle, wasn't tentative. It was raw and hungry and everything she'd been afraid to admit she wanted. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her head back, deepening the kiss until she couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but feel. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and he made a low sound in the back of his throat that sent heat flooding through her. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "That," Lorenzo said, voice rough, "changes everything." Scarlett's lips felt swollen, her skin too tight. "Good." His eyes darkened. "You don't know what you're asking for? Then show me." For a moment she thought he would, thought he'd pull her back in, let the tension between them finally break. But instead he stepped away, running a hand through his hair. "Not yet," he said. "Not until you're sure." "I am sure." "You're angry and lonely and looking for a way to feel powerful." He turned to face her, and the look in his eyes was almost sad. "I won't take advantage of that." Scarlett's chest tightened. "You think I'm confused? I think you're human, and I think you deserve better than a man who can only give you half of himself." "What if that's enough?" Lorenzo crossed back to her, slow and deliberate, until they were inches apart. "It won't be. Not for you. Not eventually." His hand lifted, brushing her cheek. "But when you're ready, when you've seen all of me and you still choose to stay, then I'll give you everything." Her throat ached. "That's not fair." "No, but it's honest." He left her standing there, heart pounding, lips still tingling from the kiss. And for the first time, Scarlett realized she wasn't afraid of Lorenzo. She was afraid of how much she wanted him. Omit. That night, Scarlett couldn't stay in the penthouse. She needed air, space, anything to clear her head. Lorenzo was in a meeting, some business she wasn't privy to, men in dark suits arriving just after sunset. She slipped out while he was occupied, taking the elevator down to the lobby, nodding at the security guard who didn't try to stop her. The city at night was different, colder, sharper. She walked without direction, hands shoved in her pockets, letting the noise and light wash over her. She didn't notice the car following her until it pulled up alongside the curb. A black sedan. Tinted windows. Idling. Scarlett's stomach dropped. She quickened her pace, heart starting to hammer, but the car matched her speed. The back window rolled down. "Get in." The voice was familiar. Scarlett stopped, turning. Richard Delano sat in the back seat, smiling. He was older than she'd expected, late 50s maybe, with silver hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from marble. Expensive suit, calm eyes. "I don't think so," Scarlett said. "I'm not asking." Delano's smile didn't waver. "Get in the car, Miss Hayes, or I'll have my driver make you." She glanced around. The street was empty. No witnesses. No help. Scarlett climbed into the car. The door closed behind her with a soft click. The locks engaged. Delano studied her for a moment, then nodded to the driver. The car pulled back into traffic, smooth and silent. "You're a hard woman to get alone," Delano said. Scarlett's pulse roared in her ears. "What do you want?" "To talk, that's all." He poured himself a drink from a decanter built into the console, didn't offer her one. "You've gotten yourself tangled up with a very dangerous man, Miss Hayes. I'm here to offer you a way out." "I don't need a way out." "No?" Delano took a sip, considering her. "Lorenzo Moretti is a criminal. A killer. He's using you to get to me, and when he's done, he'll discard you like he does everyone else. And you're different? I'm a businessman. I operate within the law, mostly." His smile sharpened. "But Lorenzo doesn't care about laws, or rules, or the people who get caught in the crossfire." Scarlett's hands clenched in her lap. "Where are we going?" "Nowhere. Just driving. Gives us privacy." Delano leaned back, swirling his drink. "I know about Evan, about your sister, about the life you had before Lorenzo walked into it. You're angry. I understand that, but anger makes people do stupid things, like getting in cars with strangers." "Exactly," he chuckled. "You're smarter than you look. What do you want from me?" Delano's expression shifted, the charm dropping away to reveal something colder underneath. "I want you to walk away from Lorenzo, publicly, loudly. Make it clear that whatever arrangement you had is over. And if I don't, then you'll become collateral damage, and I'd hate to see that happen." He set his glass down, leaning forward. "You seem like a nice girl, Miss Hayes. You don't belong in this world. So do yourself a favor. Get out while you still can." Scarlett met his gaze, refusing to look away. You're threatening me. I'm giving you advice. There's a difference. The car slowed, stopped. Scarlett glanced out the window. They were back near the penthouse, a block away, close enough that she could walk. Delano reached past her, opening the door. Think about what I said. You have 48 hours to make a decision. Scarlett climbed out, legs unsteady. She turned back. And if I choose Lorenzo? Delano's smile returned, cold and sharp. Then I hope he's worth dying for. The door closed. The car pulled away, disappearing into the night. Scarlett stood on the sidewalk, heart pounding, hands shaking so hard she had to shove them in her pockets to keep them still. She pulled out her phone, dialed. Lorenzo answered on the first ring. Where are you? A block away. Her voice cracked. I need you to come get me. Stay where you are. The line went dead. 60 seconds later, Lorenzo appeared, moving down the sidewalk like a storm. He reached her, hands going to her shoulders, eyes scanning her face. What happened? Delano, he pulled up, made me get in his car. Lorenzo's expression went ice cold. Did he touch you? No. He just talked, threatened me, told me I had 48 hours to walk away from you or... She couldn't finish the sentence. Lorenzo's jaw clenched. His hands slid down her arms, gripping her wrists. Listen to me. You don't have to be afraid. I won't let him hurt you. He said I'm collateral damage. You're not. You're mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have scared her. Instead, it steadied her. And I protect what's mine. Scarlett looked up at him, breath coming fast and shallow. What do we do? Lorenzo's eyes burned. We make sure Delano understands that threatening you was the last mistake he'll ever make. He pulled her close, wrapping an arm around her shoulders, and guided her back toward the penthouse. Scarlett leaned into him, feeling the solid weight of his presence, the unspoken promise in the way he held her. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a small voice whispered that she'd just crossed a line she could never uncross. But she didn't care, because for the first time in her life, someone was willing to go to war for her, and she was ready to let them. The penthouse felt different when they walked back in. Colder. The air itself seemed to press down on Scarlett's shoulders, heavy with unspoken threat. Lorenzo's hand stayed on the small of her back as he guided her inside, his touch firm but not rough. And when the door clicked shut behind them, she heard the locks engage one by one. 3 separate bolts. She'd never noticed that before. Sit, Lorenzo said, nodding toward the couch. Scarlett's legs moved before her brain caught up. She sank into the leather, hands folded in her lap to keep them from shaking. Lorenzo crossed to the bar, poured 2 fingers of whiskey, drank it in one swallow. Then he poured another and brought it to her. Drink. She took the glass. Didn't drink, just held it, feeling the weight of the crystal, the faint burn of alcohol fumes against her face. Lorenzo pulled out his phone, typed something fast, then made a call. It's me. Delano made contact with Scarlett, pulled her into a car, threatened her, gave her 48 hours to walk away. A pause. No, she's fine, but I want eyes on every property he owns by morning, and pull the surveillance from tonight. I want to know who was in that car besides him. Another pause. His jaw tightened. I don't care what it costs. Just do it. He ended the call and turned back to Scarlett. For a moment, he just looked at her, and she saw something in his expression she hadn't seen before. Not anger, not calculation, fear. Tell me exactly what he said, Lorenzo said quietly. Scarlett's throat felt tight. He said I was tangled up with a dangerous man, that you were using me to get to him, that when you were done, you'd discard me. She paused, swallowing hard. He said if I didn't walk away publicly in 48 hours, I'd become collateral damage. Lorenzo's hands curled into fists at his sides. Anything else? He knew about Evan, about Maya, about my life before you. Her voice dropped. He's been watching me, Lorenzo. For how long? Long enough to know you matter to me. Lorenzo moved to the window, staring out at the city, which means I waited too long to move against him. What does that mean? It means I should have ended this weeks ago, before you were involved, before he had leverage. He turned, and the look in his eyes made her chest tighten. I made a mistake, Scarlett, and now you're paying for it. She set the glass down, hands trembling. So what do? We don't do anything. I handle Delano. You stay here where it's safe. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Scarlett stood, anger flaring hot and sudden. Stop doing that. Stop treating me like I'm fragile. I'm in this now, whether you like it or not. So either tell me the truth or let me leave. Lorenzo crossed to her in 3 long strides, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his gaze. You want the truth? Fine. Richard Delano is a predator. He doesn't make empty threats. If he says you're collateral damage, he means it. And the only way to keep you alive is to make sure he understands that touching you is suicide. How? By giving him a reason to be more afraid of me than he is greedy. Her pulse hammered. What kind of reason? Lorenzo's mouth curved into something cold and humorless, the kind that ends with him in the ground. The words hung in the air between them, brutal and final. Scarlett's stomach twisted. You're going to kill him, if that's what it takes. And if I ask you not to? Then I'll lie and tell you I won't. His hand came up, cupping her jaw, thumb brushing across her cheekbone. But I'm not letting him hurt you, Scarlett. Not for any reason. She should have argued, should have told him there had to be another way. But all she could think about was Delano's cold smile, the certainty in his voice when he'd said she didn't belong in this world. I don't want you to kill anyone because of me, she said quietly. Then you're in the wrong place with the wrong man. The honesty of it cut deeper than any lie could have. Scarlett pulled away, wrapping her arms around herself, suddenly exhausted. I need to sleep. Go. I'll be here. She walked to her room on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else, shut the door, and collapsed onto the bed fully clothed. Sleep didn't come. She lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the low murmur of Lorenzo's voice in the other room as he made call after call, orchestrating something she couldn't see but could feel closing in around them like a noose. Somewhere around 3 a.m, she finally drifted off and woke to the sound of breaking glass. What this? Scarlett bolted upright, heart slamming against her ribs. For a moment she couldn't place the sound. Sharp, violent, wrong. Then she heard voices. Shouting. The heavy thud of footsteps. She scrambled out of bed, yanked open the door, and froze. The main room was chaos. 2 men in dark clothes grappled with Lorenzo near the windows, one of them bleeding from a gash above his eye. Lorenzo moved like something feral, all controlled violence, his fist connecting with the second man's jaw hard enough that Scarlett heard bone crack. The man went down. Didn't get up. The first man lunged, knife flashing in the low light. Lorenzo caught his wrist, twisted, and the knife clattered to the floor. Then Lorenzo's hand was around the man's throat, slamming him back against the wall. Who sent you? Lorenzo's voice was ice. The man gasped, clawing at Lorenzo's wrist. Delano. I know that. I want names. Who else is coming? I don't know. Lorenzo's grip tightened. Wrong answer. Scarlett couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She stood in the doorway watching, and some distant part of her brain screamed that she should do something, call someone, run. But her body wouldn't obey. Then she saw movement in her peripheral vision. Another man, coming from the hallway behind her. She spun just as his hand closed around her arm, yanking her backward. She opened her mouth to scream, but his other hand clamped over it, muffling the sound. He dragged her toward the elevator, and panic exploded through her chest. Lorenzo! The word came out garbled against the man's palm, but Lorenzo heard. His head snapped toward her, and the expression on his face was something out of a nightmare. Pure, unadulterated rage. He dropped the man he was holding and moved. Scarlett had never seen anyone move that fast. 1 second, Lorenzo was across the room. The next, he was on top of the man holding her, wrenching him away with enough force that Scarlett stumbled, catching herself against the wall. The man hit the floor hard. Lorenzo didn't give him a chance to recover. His fist came down once, twice, 3 times, each impact sickening and wet. The man stopped moving. Scarlett's knees buckled. She slid down the wall, hands pressed over her mouth, bile rising in her throat. Lorenzo stood, breathing hard, knuckles split and bleeding. He crossed to her, crouching down, hands going to her shoulders. Are you hurt? She shook her head, couldn't speak. Scarlett, look at me. She forced her gaze up. His face was spattered with blood that wasn't his, eyes wild, hair disheveled. He looked like a stranger. I'm okay, she managed. Good. He pulled her to her feet, steadying her. We're leaving, now. What about them? My people are on their way. They'll clean this up. He guided her toward the door, stepping over the unconscious bodies like they were furniture. We can't stay here. Delano knows where you are. Scarlett's mind spun. Where are we going? Somewhere he won't find you. The elevator ride down was silent except for the faint hum of machinery and Scarlett's ragged breathing. Lorenzo kept one hand on her shoulder, the other on his phone, typing rapidly. When the doors opened, a black SUV was already waiting at the curb, engine running. Lorenzo opened the back door, practically lifting Scarlett inside, then climbed in after her. The driver pulled into traffic before either of them had their seatbelts on. The safe house, Lorenzo said. The driver nodded. Scarlett stared out of the window, watching the city blur past, her hands shaking so hard she had to press them between her knees. This is insane. Yes. He sent people to kill us. To take you, not kill. Not yet. Lorenzo's voice was flat, clinical. Delano wants leverage. You alive are worth more than you dead. The words should have been comforting. They weren't. How did they get in? She asked. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. The SUV turned onto a highway, heading out of the city. Scarlett watched the buildings give way to darkness, the weight of everything pressing down on her chest until she thought she might suffocate. I can't do this, she whispered. Lorenzo's hand found hers, fingers lacing through hers, grip tight. Yes, you can. I'm not like you. I can't just... Her voice broke. I watched you almost kill a man. I know. And you're not even sorry. No, I'm not. He turned to face her, and the honesty in his eyes was brutal. He was going to take you, Scarlett, hurt you, use you to get to me. So no, I'm not sorry I stopped him. Tears burned behind her eyes. She blinked them back, refusing to let them fall. This isn't what I wanted. What did you want? I don't know, something different. Something that didn't involve people breaking into my home and dragging me out in the middle of the night. Then you wanted a fantasy. Lorenzo's grip on her hand tightened. This is the reality, and if you can't handle it, I'll take you somewhere safe and walk away. But you don't get to pretend you didn't know what you were choosing. The words landed like a slap. Scarlett pulled her hand away, wrapping her arms around herself. Maybe I didn't. Then decide now, because we're running out of time. She didn't answer. Couldn't. Just stared out the window and tried to remember what her life had been like before Lorenzo Moretti walked into it. She couldn't. The safe house was a cabin an hour outside the city, tucked into woods so thick Scarlett couldn't see the road from the porch. Lorenzo unlocked the door, ushered her inside, and immediately went to the windows, checking locks, pulling curtains. The interior was sparse: a couch, a table, a small kitchen, one bedroom in the back. Everything functional, nothing personal. You've used this before, Scarlett said. Yes. For what? Things I'm not going to tell you about. She almost laughed. Almost. Of course not. Lorenzo crossed to the kitchen, filled a glass with water, brought it to her. Drink. She took it, set it down without drinking. I want answers. I know. So give them to me. Lorenzo leaned against the counter, arms crossed, and for a moment he just looked at her. Then he sighed, running a hand through his hair. What do you want to know? Everything? Why Delano hates you, why Evan's involved, why you really showed up at that restaurant. She stepped closer. And don't lie to me. I've never lied to you. You've never told me the whole truth either. He couldn't argue with that. Lorenzo's jaw tightened and he looked away, staring at the dark window. Delano and I have been at war for 2 years. He thinks I'm encroaching on his territory. I think he's a parasite who needs to be removed. We've been circling each other, testing boundaries, waiting for the other to make a mistake. And I'm the mistake? No. You're the variable he didn't account for. Lorenzo's gaze came back to her. Evan works for Delano, has for 3 years. He launders money, sets up shell companies, keeps the books clean. When I found out he was engaged to your sister, I started looking into your family, found out about you, about what he did to you. Scarlett's stomach twisted. So you decided to use me. I decided to keep an eye on you, see if you were connected to Delano's operation. He paused. You weren't. You were just collateral damage from Evan's choices. And when I saw you sitting at that table, surrounded by people who should have protected you, I made a decision. To play the hero? To give you an option? Lorenzo pushed off the counter, closing the distance between them. You said my name, Scarlet. You threw it out like a grenade, and I walked in because I wanted to see what you'd do with the explosion. And now? Now you're in deeper than either of us planned. And Delano knows it. She stared at him, heart pounding. You're saying this is my fault. I'm saying we both made choices that led us here, and now we have to live with them. Scarlett's hands clenched into fists. I hate you. I know. I should leave, right now, walk out that door and never look back. You should, but I can't, because if I do, Delano wins, and I'm so fucking tired of losing. Lorenzo's expression softened, just slightly. Then don't. Don't what? Lose. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating off him. Stay. Fight. Show them you're not the broken thing they think you are. Scarlett's breath hitched. And if I can't? You can. I've seen it. His hand came up, fingers brushing her cheek. You're stronger than you think, Scarlett. You just need to stop being afraid of it. For a moment, she almost believed him, almost let herself lean into the warmth of his touch, the certainty in his voice. But then reality crashed back in, cold and unforgiving. I'm not strong, she whispered. I'm terrified. Good. Fear keeps you alive. Lorenzo's thumb traced the line of her jaw. But don't let it control you. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his entire body went rigid. What? Scarlett asked. Lorenzo's face drained of color. We need to go. Now. Why? What happened? They found us. Her blood turned to ice. How? I don't know, but we have maybe 5 minutes before they're at the door. He grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the back of the cabin. There's a trail through the woods, follows a creek. You stay on it. You'll hit a road in about 2 miles. What about you? I'm staying, buying you time. No. Scarlett, listen to me. Lorenzo gripped her shoulders, forcing her to meet his gaze. If they get you, I have no leverage, no way to negotiate. You run, you stay alive, and I can fix this. Tears burned her eyes. I'm not leaving you. Yes, you are. He kissed her forehead, quick and fierce. Go, now. He shoved her toward the back door, and she stumbled, catching herself on the doorframe. Outside, the woods were pitch black, the sound of approaching engines growing louder. Scarlett looked back. Lorenzo was already moving, pulling a gun from somewhere she hadn't seen, checking the clip. Lorenzo. Run, Scarlett, and don't look back. She ran. Branches tore at her clothes, her face, her hands. She couldn't see, could barely breathe, but she kept moving, following the sound of water somewhere to her left. Behind her, she heard shouting. A gunshot. Then another. She ran faster. The creek appeared suddenly, a silver ribbon in the darkness. She followed it, feet slipping on wet rocks, lungs burning, until she couldn't hear the cabin anymore. Couldn't hear anything but her own ragged breathing and the pounding of her heart. When she finally stopped, collapsing against a tree, she was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Lorenzo was back there, fighting, maybe dying. And she'd run. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She'd left him, abandoned him, done exactly what he'd told her to do, and she hated herself for it. She pulled out her phone. No service. Of course not. Scarlett forced herself to keep moving, following the creek until her legs gave out, and she had to stop again. She had no idea how long she'd been walking. Could have been an hour. Could have been 10 minutes. Time felt broken, disconnected. Then she heard it, the sound of an engine. She froze, every muscle locking. The sound grew louder, closer. Headlights cut through the trees. A car on the road Lorenzo had mentioned. Scarlett's brain screamed at her to hide, to stay in the woods, but her body moved toward the light. She stumbled out onto the gravel road just as the car came around the bend. It stopped. The driver's door opened. Evan stepped out. Scarlett's world tilted. No. Get in the car, Scarlett. What are you doing here? Saving you. Evan moved toward her, hands raised like he was approaching a spooked animal. Delano sent me. He knew Lorenzo would run, knew he'd bring you here. Her stomach dropped. How? Evan's expression was almost pitying. Because I told him. The words didn't make sense at first, then, slowly, horribly, they did. You, Scarlett breathed. You've been feeding Delano information. I've been doing my job. Evan stopped a few feet away. Lorenzo's dangerous, Scarlett. He's a killer, and you're in way over your head. So you sold me out? I'm trying to save you. By handing me over to the man who threatened to kill me? Evan's jaw tightened. Delano doesn't want to kill you. He wants to use you. There's a difference. Scarlett's hands curled into fists. And you think that's better? I think it keeps you alive long enough for this to blow over. He took another step closer. Come with me, now, and I'll make sure Delano doesn't hurt you. What about Lorenzo? Lorenzo's a dead man. He just doesn't know it yet. The words hit like ice water. Scarlett's breath caught. You set him up. I did my job. You betrayed him? I survived. There's a difference. Evan's hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. Now get in the car before I make you. Scarlett tried to pull away, but his grip was iron. Panic flared hot and sudden. Let go. Not until you're safe. I'm not going anywhere with you. Evan's expression hardened. He started dragging her toward the car, and she fought, clawing at his hand, kicking, screaming. But he was stronger, and she was exhausted. And when he shoved her into the back seat, she didn't have the strength to fight anymore. The door slammed shut, locks engaged. Evan climbed into the driver's seat, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. I'm sorry, Scarlett, but this is for your own good. She didn't answer, just pressed her forehead against the window and tried not to think about Lorenzo, alone in that cabin, surrounded by enemies. Tried not to think about how she'd failed him. The car pulled back onto the road, heading deeper into the woods, away from the city, away from everything. And Scarlett realized, with a sick certainty, that she'd just traded one prison for another's. They drove for what felt like hours before the car finally stopped. Scarlett lifted her head, squinting through the windshield. They were parked in front of a warehouse, the kind that looked abandoned but wasn't. Lights glowed behind dirty windows. Shadows moved inside. Evan got out, opened her door. Come on. Where are we? Somewhere safe. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. He grabbed her arm, pulling her out of the car. Scarlett stumbled, catching herself, and Evan steadied her with a grip that was just shy of painful. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Or what? You'll hurt me too? His jaw tightened. I've never hurt you, Scarlett. You left me 3 weeks before our wedding with nothing but a voicemail. That's not hurting me? That was business. Business? She laughed, the sound sharp and broken. You're unbelievable. Evan didn't respond, just dragged her toward the warehouse entrance, knocked twice. The door opened and Scarlett's stomach dropped. Richard Delano stood in the doorway, smiling. Miss Hayes, so good of you to join us. Scarlett tried to pull away from Evan, but his grip tightened. Let me go. Not yet. Evan shoved her forward, and Delano caught her arm, steadying her. Easy, Delano said. His voice was calm, almost soothing. We're not going to hurt you. You threatened to kill me. I gave you a choice. You made the wrong one. Delano guided her inside, one hand on her elbow, the other gesturing to a chair in the center of the room. Sit. Scarlett sat, not because she wanted to, but because her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. The warehouse was bigger than it looked from outside. Open floor plan, concrete walls, a few folding tables scattered around. Men stood near the edges of the room, watching, waiting. Delano pulled up a chair, sitting across from her. You're probably wondering why you're here. I know why I'm here. You're using me to get to Lorenzo. Partially true. Delano leaned back, crossing one leg over the other. But there's more to it than that. What more could there possibly be? Delano smiled. The truth? Scarlett's pulse spiked. What truth? About Lorenzo. About how he found you. About why he really walked into that restaurant. Delano reached into his jacket, pulled out a folder, set it on the table between them. Open it. She stared at the folder like it was a snake. No. Open it, Miss Hayes, or I'll open it for you. Her hand shook as she reached for the folder. The edges were worn, the paper inside thick. She flipped it open, and her entire world shattered. The first page was a photograph. Her leaving her apartment, coffee in hand. The date stamp in the corner was from 6 months ago. The second page was another photograph. Her at a coffee shop, laptop open. 4 months ago. The third was her walking into the co-working space. 2 months ago. There were dozens of them. All of her. All taken without her knowledge. And at the bottom of the folder, a handwritten note. Target? Scarlett Hayes. Connection? Evan Cross. Status? Monitored. Recommendation? Establish contact when opportunity arises. The handwriting was neat, precise, and unmistakably Lorenzo's. Scarlett's hands went numb. The folder slipped from her fingers, pages scattering across the floor. He's been watching you for months, Delano said quietly. Long before you ever said his name. He orchestrated everything, Scarlett. The restaurant, the confrontation with Evan, all of it. No. The word came out weak, broken. Yes. Delano leaned forward. Lorenzo Moretti doesn't do anything by chance. He saw an opportunity to get close to someone connected to Evan, to me, and he took it. You were never anything more than a tool. Scarlett's vision blurred. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I don't believe you. Then ask him. Delano stood, nodding to one of the men near the door. Bring him in. The door opened, and Lorenzo walked in, hands zip-tied in front of him, face bruised and bloodied, flanked by 2 guards. Their eyes met. Scarlett saw the truth in his expression before he said a word. Guilt, regret, resignation. It's true, isn't it? She whispered. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. He didn't answer. Tell me it's not true. Her voice cracked. Tell me you didn't plan this from the beginning. For a long moment, Lorenzo just looked at her. Then quietly, he said, I can't. The words hit like a bullet. Scarlett stood, chair scraping against concrete, and crossed to him. She didn't think, didn't plan, just pulled her hand back and slapped him across the face hard enough that his head snapped to the side. You lied to me. Yes. You used me. Yes. Why? The word came out raw, desperate. Why me? Lorenzo's gaze finally met hers, and the pain in his eyes was real, too real. Because you were perfect, connected enough to be useful, broken enough to be vulnerable, and I thought... He stopped, jaw clenching. I thought I could keep it separate, business, and what? And whatever this became. Scarlett's chest heaved. She wanted to hit him again, wanted to scream, wanted to do anything but stand there feeling like her entire body was cracking apart. I trusted you, she said. I know. I chose you over everything. I know. And you destroyed me. Lorenzo's expression crumpled. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. I know. Delano's voice cut through the silence. Touching, really, but we have business to conclude. He nodded to the guards. Take him to the back. I'll deal with him after I'm done here. The guards started to drag Lorenzo away. He didn't resist, just kept his eyes on Scarlett, and she saw everything in that look. Apology, regret, love. It didn't matter. None of it mattered. Because he'd lied. From the very beginning, he'd lied. And now she was alone. Delano turned back to her, smile returning. Now, Miss Hayes, let's discuss your future. Scarlett didn't answer, just stood there, numb and hollow, and wondered if there was anything left of her to save. Delano talked for what felt like hours, explained his terms, his expectations. What would happen if she cooperated? What would happen if she didn't? Scarlett heard maybe half of it. The rest was white noise, drowned out by the roaring in her ears, and the image of Lorenzo's face burned into her retinas. Finally, Delano stopped, leaned back, studied her. You're not listening, he said. No. You should be. Your life depends on it. My life's already over. She looked up, meeting his gaze. So do whatever you're going to do. I don't care anymore. Delano's smile faded. You don't mean that. Don't I? For a moment he just looked at her. Then he stood, crossing to the door. Bring her to the holding room. Let her think about her choices. Two men appeared, gripping her arms, lifting her to her feet. Scarlett didn't fight, didn't resist. Just let them drag her through the warehouse to a small room in the back. They shoved her inside, and the door slammed shut, locked. Scarlett sank to the floor, back against the wall, and finally let the tears come. She cried for the girl she'd been before Lorenzo, for the woman she'd thought she was becoming, for the stupid, reckless hope that maybe, just maybe, someone could see her and choose her and mean it. She cried until there was nothing left, and when the tears finally stopped, she sat in the silence and made a decision. She wasn't going to be a victim anymore, not to Delano, not to Evan, not to Lorenzo, not to anyone. If they wanted to use her, fine. She'd let them think she was broken, defeated, and then she'd burn their entire world to the ground, starting with the man who'd lied to her from the very beginning. The holding room had no windows, just 4 concrete walls, a metal door with a slot at the bottom, and a single bare bulb that flickered every few minutes like it was considering giving up entirely. Scarlett sat with her back pressed against the cold wall, knees pulled to her chest, and counted the flickers. 37, 38, 39. Anything to keep her mind from spiraling back to Lorenzo's face, to the folders scattered across the warehouse floor, to 6 months of photographs she'd never known existed. The door opened without warning. Evan stepped inside, carrying a bottle of water and a sandwich wrapped in plastic. He set them on the floor a few feet away from her, then leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You should eat," he said. Scarlett didn't look at him. "Get out." "Scarlett, I said get out." Evan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know you're angry, but this is for your own good." That got her attention. She lifted her head, meeting his gaze with eyes that felt raw and swollen. "My own good? You handed me over to a man who threatened to kill me. Delano's not going to kill you. He needs you alive." "Oh, well, that makes it so much better." She laughed, the sound brittle and sharp. "What does he need me for, Evan? What's the play here?" Evan hesitated. For a moment she thought he might actually tell her the truth. Then his expression shuddered, professional mask sliding back into place. "That's between you and Delano." "Of course it is." Scarlett pushed to her feet, ignoring the way her legs trembled. "You're just the errand boy. Do what you're told, don't ask questions, cash the checks." His jaw tightened. "It's not that simple, isn't it?" She took a step closer, and he straightened, hand moving to his pocket. She saw the bulge there, a gun, probably. "You work for a man who deals in violence and fear. You left me because staying would have complicated your career, and now you've delivered me to him like a package. Seems pretty simple to me. I left you because I didn't love you." The words came out flat, brutal. "I'm sorry if that hurts, but it's the truth. And this, bringing you here, is the only way I can keep you safe from Lorenzo." Scarlett's hands curled into fists. "Lorenzo's the one who protected me. You're the one who sold me out." "Lorenzo's a killer. He's manipulated you from day one. Everything he told you was a lie. And everything you told me was what? The truth?" Her voice rose, cracking. "You proposed to me, Evan. You looked me in the eye and said you wanted to spend your life with me. Then you vanished 3 weeks before the wedding and ended up with my sister. So don't you dare stand there and lecture me about lies." Evan's face flushed. "That was different." "How?" "Because I didn't put your life in danger." "No, you just destroyed it." Scarlett stepped closer, close enough to see the guilt flickering behind his eyes. "And now you're doing it again. So congratulations. You win. I'm broken. Are you happy?" For a long moment, Evan just stared at her. Then he looked away, jaw working. "I didn't want this." "Then let me go." "I can't. Can't or won't. Both." He turned back to the door. "Eat something. Delano wants to see you in an hour." The door closed, locked. Scarlett sank back to the floor, heart pounding so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. She stared at the water bottle and sandwich, stomach churning with nausea and rage and something else she couldn't name. Then she looked up at the flickering bulb and started planning. Possessive. 53 minutes later, the door opened again. This time it was one of Delano's men. Tall, silent, expression blank. He gestured for her to stand. Scarlett did slowly, letting her body telegraph exhaustion and defeat. The man didn't seem to notice or care, just grabbed her arm and pulled her out into the hallway. They walked through the warehouse, past stacks of crates and folding tables, until they reached an office in the back. The man knocked twice, then opened the door and shoved her inside. Delano sat behind a desk that looked like it had been salvaged from a corporate bankruptcy. He glanced up when she entered, smiled, and gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit." Scarlett sat, kept her face blank. Delano studied her for a moment, then leaned back, fingers steepled. "You're angry." "Observant. Sarcasm won't help you. Neither will cooperation, but here I am." His smile widened. "You're smarter than Lorenzo gave you credit for." The mention of Lorenzo's name sent a spike of pain through her chest, but she kept her expression neutral. "Where is he?" "Safe. For now." Delano opened a drawer, pulled out a tablet, tapped the screen a few times, then turned it to face her. "See for yourself." The screen showed a live feed from a security camera. Lorenzo sat in a room similar to the one Scarlett had been in, hands still zip-tied, head tilted back against the wall. His face was a mess, split lip, bruising along his jaw, dried blood crusted under his nose. But he was alive. Scarlett's throat tightened. "What do you want from me?" "Cooperation. Like I said." Delano set the tablet down. "Lorenzo has something I need. Information about an operation he's been running. Accounts, contacts, rotes. He's refused to give it to me, which I respect. Loyalty is admirable. So torture him until he talks." "I could, but that's messy, time-consuming, and there's always the risk he'd lie." Delano leaned forward. "But your leverage, the one thing he actually cares about. So here's the deal. You convince him to cooperate, and I let both of you walk." Scarlett's pulse spiked. "You're lying." "Am I?" Delano's expression didn't change. "Think about it. What do I gain by killing you? Dead, you're useless. Alive and cooperative, you're valuable. Lorenzo gives me what I want, I release you both, and we all go our separate ways. And if I refuse, then I start hurting him, slowly, until you change your mind." Delano's smile turned cold. "Or until he's dead, whichever comes first." Scarlett's hands clenched in her lap. She forced herself to breathe slowly, evenly. "When?" "Now." Delano stood, nodding to the door. "You have 10 minutes to convince him. After that, my patience runs out." They brought her to Lorenzo's holding room in silence. The door opened, and the guard shoved her inside. Lorenzo's head snapped up, eyes widening when he saw her. "Scarlett!" The door slammed shut before he could finish. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then Lorenzo struggled to his feet, moving toward her despite the zip ties. "Are you hurt?" "Don't." The word came out sharp, cutting. She took a step back, putting distance between them. "Don't pretend you care." His face crumpled. "I do care." "You have a funny way of showing it." "I know." Lorenzo stopped, hands raised as much as the ties would allow. "I know I fucked up. I know I lied to you, but Scarlett, you have to believe me. It stopped being about the job the second I walked into that restaurant." "When?" Her voice shook. "When did it stop? After the first lie, the second, the 100th? I don't know. Somewhere between the penthouse and the warehouse. Somewhere between watching you fall apart and realizing I'd do anything to put you back together." His voice dropped, raw and broken. "I didn't plan to fall for you. I didn't want to, but I did." Scarlett's chest tightened. She wanted to believe him, wanted it so badly it physically hurt. But the folder's contents were burned into her brain, and she couldn't unsee them. "You watched me for 6 months," she said quietly. "Took photographs. Studied me like I was a target." "Yes." "And you never thought to tell me?" "I thought—" Lorenzo's jaw clenched. "I thought if I told you, you'd run, and I needed you close to get to Delano. So you manipulated me instead." "Yes. And now we're both going to die because of it." Lorenzo's expression hardened. "No, you're going to walk out of here. I'll make sure of it." "How? You're tied up, beaten, and locked in a room with no windows. What exactly is your plan?" "I give Delano what he wants. You go free." Scarlett's stomach dropped. "That's not a plan. That's suicide." It's the only option. No. She crossed to him, grabbed the front of his shirt despite the anger still simmering in her chest. You give him what he wants, he kills you. And probably me too, just to tie up loose ends. He won't. He's a businessman. He'll honor the deal. You don't believe that? Lorenzo's gaze dropped. No, but I'm out of options. For a moment, Scarlett just looked at him. At the bruises, the blood, the exhaustion etched into every line of his face. And despite everything, despite the lies, the manipulation, the betrayal, she saw the truth underneath. He was willing to die for her. The realization settled over her like a weight. There's another way, she said quietly. Lorenzo's eyes snapped back to hers. What? We make Delano think you're cooperating. Give him just enough to keep him satisfied. Then we find a way out. Scarlett, there's no way out. His men are everywhere. Then we make one. She released his shirt, stepping back, mind racing. You said you've been at war with him for 2 years. That means you know how he operates, his weaknesses. I know he's careful, paranoid, always has an exit strategy. So we give him a reason to use it. Scarlett started pacing, pieces clicking into place. What does he want more than information? Lorenzo considered. Control. Delano's entire empire is built on fear and leverage. If he loses that, he loses everything. Then we take it from him. How? Scarlett stopped pacing, meeting his gaze. We expose him. Everything. His operations, his contacts, his dirty money. We burn it all down and make sure everyone knows it was him. Lorenzo stared at her like she'd grown a second head. That's insane. So is giving up. Even if we could pull it off, and that's a massive if, we'd need access to his files, his computers, and we're locked in a warehouse surrounded by armed guards. So we get creative. Scarlett crossed back to him, fingers working at the zip ties around his wrists. They were tight, biting into his skin, but she found the locking mechanism and started to manipulate it. Evan brought me here. He knows the layout, and he's guilty enough that I might be able to use it. Use it how? By making him think he's saving me. The tie gave way with a soft snap. Lorenzo's hands came free, and he immediately started rubbing circulation back into his wrists. He still sees himself as the hero in this story. I just need to remind him what heroes do. Lorenzo caught her hand, pulling her attention back to him. This is dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous. If it goes wrong, then we die. But at least we'll die fighting. She met his gaze, steady and unflinching. I'm done being a victim, Lorenzo. I'm done letting people like Delano and Evan decide what happens to me. So either help me burn this place to the ground or get out of my way. For a long moment, Lorenzo just looked at her. Then, slowly, a smile curved his mouth, genuine, almost proud. You're terrifying. I learned from the best. He pulled her closer, forehead pressing against hers. I'm sorry. For all of it. I know. Her voice softened. We'll deal with that later, if we survive. When we survive. Optimist. Realist. Lorenzo pulled back, jaw set with determination. What do you need me to do? Scarlett's mind raced, assembling a plan from fragments and desperation. When they come back, you tell Delano you'll cooperate. Give him something small, enough to buy time. And you? I convince Evan to get me access to a computer. Tell him I need to see proof you're okay before I agree to help. Make it emotional. Make him think I'm breaking. Can you do that? I've been breaking for months. I just need to show him the pieces. She moved to the door, pressing her ear against it. No footsteps, no voices. How much time do you think we have? Minutes? Maybe less. Lorenzo crossed to her, voice dropping. Scarlett, if this doesn't work, it will. But if it doesn't, then we go down swinging. She looked up at him, and for the first time since seeing that folder, she let herself feel everything she'd been trying to bury. The anger, the hurt, the love. I meant what I said earlier. I trusted you. I chose you, and you lied to me. I know, but I also know what it looks like when someone's willing to die for another person, and you are. Her hand came up, fingers brushing the bruise along his jaw. So when this is over, if we're still alive, we're going to have a very long conversation about honesty and trust, and whether any of this can be salvaged. Lorenzo's hand covered hers. And if it can't? Then at least we'll go out knowing we tried. Before he could respond, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Heavy. Multiple sets. Scarlett stepped back, and Lorenzo immediately moved to the far wall, slumping against it like he was still restrained. She positioned herself near the door, hands trembling just enough to sell the performance. The door opened. 2 guards entered, followed by Delano. He looked at Scarlett first, then Lorenzo. "Time's up. What's it gonna be?" Scarlett's voice came out small, broken. "He'll cooperate. Just please don't hurt him anymore." Delano's smile was triumphant. "Smart girl." He turned to Lorenzo. "Well?" Lorenzo lifted his head, expression carved from stone. "I'll give you what you want, but she walks first." "Not how this works." "Then we don't have a deal." Delano's smile faded. For a moment, Scarlett thought he might refuse. Then he nodded to one of the guards. "Take her back to holding. Let her clean up. We'll bring her to the office when he's given us something useful." The guard grabbed Scarlett's arm. She didn't resist. Just let him pull her out of the room, catching Lorenzo's gaze one last time before the door closed between them. His eyes said everything his mouth couldn't. "Trust me, I've got this." She hoped to hell he was right. They brought her back to the first holding room and left her there with a bottle of water and a towel that had seen better days. Scarlett waited exactly 3 minutes after the door closed before she started pounding on it. "I need to use the bathroom," she called. "Please, I'm going to be sick." Silence. Then footsteps. The door opened. A different guard this time, younger, less certain. "What?" "Bathroom, now, unless you want to clean up vomit." He hesitated, then grabbed her arm and pulled her into the hallway. They walked past offices and storage rooms until they reached a small bathroom. He opened the door, gestured inside. 2 minutes. Scarlett slipped inside, locked the door, and immediately went to work. The bathroom was tiny, toilet, sink, no windows, but it had a vent in the ceiling. She climbed onto the toilet, pushed the vent cover aside, and peered into the darkness beyond. Ductwork. Narrow, but navigable if she was desperate enough. And she was. Scarlett pulled herself up, ignoring the way her arms screamed in protest, and squeezed into the duct. The metal was cold and sharp-edged, biting into her palms as she crawled forward. She had no idea where she was going, just moved toward the faint sound of voices somewhere ahead. The duct branched. She followed the louder voices, inching forward until she found another vent, peered through the slats. Delano's office. Evan stood in front of the desk, arms crossed, expression tight. "This is taking too long. We should just cut our losses and..." "And what?" Delano's voice was ice. "Kill them both? Burn the evidence? Run? If necessary." "You're thinking small, Evan. Lorenzo's network is worth millions. His contacts alone could double our operation. I'm not walking away from that because you're getting nervous." "I'm not nervous. I'm practical. The longer we keep them here, the more chances something goes wrong." "Nothing's going to go wrong. Lorenzo will give us what we need, and then..." A loud crash cut him off, shouting, gunfire. Scarlett's heart stopped. Delano was on his feet instantly, gun appearing in his hand. "What the hell?" More gunfire, closer. The door to the office burst open, and one of the guards stumbled in, blood spreading across his shoulder. "We're under attack. It's Moretti's people. They found us." Delano's face went white. "How many?" "At least a dozen. Maybe more." "Lockdown. Now." Delano turned to Evan. "Get the girl. We're moving." Evan ran from the room. Delano followed, leaving the wounded guard slumped against the wall. Scarlett's mind raced. Lorenzo's people were here, which meant he'd gotten a message out somehow. Or they'd tracked him. Either way, the warehouse was about to become a war zone. She had to move. Now. Scarlett crawled backward through the duct, retracing her path until she reached the bathroom vent. Dropped down, landing hard on the tile, pain shooting through her ankle. She ignored it, opened the door. The hallway was chaos. Men running, shouting, weapons drawn. Scarlett pressed herself against the wall, trying to stay invisible. Then she saw him. Lorenzo moving through the corridor like a ghost, gun in hand, taking down guards with brutal efficiency. His face was a mask of focus and rage, every movement precise. He spotted her. Crossed to her in 3 long strides, grabbing her arm. "We're leaving. Your people are buying us time. Come on." He pulled her down the hallway, away from the gunfire, toward what looked like an emergency exit. They were 10 feet from the door when it burst open. Evans stepped through, gun raised. "Don't move!" Lorenzo shoved Scarlett behind him, his own weapon coming up. "Let us pass." "I can't do that." "Then you're going to die." Evans' hand shook. "She's coming with me. Delano's orders." "Delano's finished. His operation's burned. It's over." "Not yet." Evans' finger tightened on the trigger. "Step aside, Lorenzo. Last chance." "No." Lorenzo's voice was flat, final. "You want her. You go through me." For a moment, no one moved. Then Scarlett stepped out from behind Lorenzo, hands raised. "Evan, please, just let us go." Evan's gaze flicked to her, and she saw it, the hesitation, the conflict. "I can't. If I do, Delano will kill me. If you don't, Lorenzo will." She took another step forward. "You said you were trying to save me. Prove it. Let me leave." "Scarlett, please." His hand wavered, lowered slightly. Lorenzo moved. The shot echoed through the hallway, deafening in the enclosed space. Scarlett's ears rang. She couldn't tell who'd fired until she saw Evan stumble backward, hand pressed to his side, blood seeping through his fingers. Lorenzo's gun was still raised, smoke curling from the barrel. "I gave you a chance." Evan dropped to his knees, gasping. You shot me." "You threatened her. That's the only outcome." Lorenzo crossed to him, crouching down. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me where Delano keeps his files, all of them, and then I'm going to let you live long enough to crawl out of here and disappear." Evan coughed, blood flecking his lips. "Office, third drawer, USB drives." "Good." Lorenzo stood, turning back to Scarlett. "Stay here." "No, I'm coming with you." "Scarlett, I said I'm coming." She met his gaze, unflinching. "We finish this together." Lorenzo's jaw tightened, then he nodded. "Fine, but you stay behind me." They left Evan on the floor and moved deeper into the warehouse. The gunfire had died down, replaced by an eerie quiet, broken only by the distant wail of sirens. Lorenzo led her back to Delano's office, kicked the door open, moved to the desk. The third drawer was locked. Lorenzo shot it open, pulled out 3 USB drives, pocketed them. "That's it?" Scarlett asked. "That's everything. His entire operation, his contacts, his accounts. With this, I can dismantle him completely." A voice from the doorway made them both freeze. "Not if you're dead." Delano stood in the entrance, gun trained on Lorenzo. His face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead, but his hand was steady. "Drop it," Delano said. Lorenzo didn't move. "You're outnumbered. My people have already secured the building." "Then they can watch you die." Delano's finger tightened on the trigger. "Drop the gun, Moretti. Last warning." Lorenzo's gaze flicked to Scarlett. She saw the calculation in his eyes, the decision forming. He was going to do something stupid. "Don't," she breathed. "I have to." "Lorenzo." He dropped his gun, kicked it toward Delano. "Let her go. This is between us." Delano's smile was cold. "Finally, some sense." He gestured with the gun. "Against the wall, both of you." They moved slowly, Lorenzo keeping himself between Scarlett and Delano's weapon. When their backs hit the wall, Delano stepped fully into the room, closing the door behind him. "You know what I hate most about you, Moretti," Delano said conversationally. "You think you're untouchable, that your reputation makes you invincible, but right now you're just a man, and men bleed." "So do you." "True, but I'm the one holding the gun." Scarlett's mind raced. They needed a distraction, something, anything. Her hand found Lorenzo's. Squeezed once. He squeezed back, understanding. "Before you kill us," Scarlett said, voice shaking, "can I ask one question?" Delano's gaze flicked to her. "Make it quick." "Why me? Of all the people you could have used against Lorenzo, why me?" Delano's smile widened. "Because you were easy, broken, desperate for someone to see you. Lorenzo saw that and used it. I'm just following his example." The words should have hurt. Instead, they crystallized something inside Scarlett, a cold, hard certainty. She wasn't broken. She was furious. and fury was fuel. Scarlett lunged, not at Delano, at the desk. Her hand closed around a heavy glass paperweight, and she hurled it with everything she had. It caught Delano in the temple. He staggered, gun wavering. Lorenzo moved like lightning, crossed the distance, slammed Delano against the wall, twisted the gun from his grip. They struggled, grappling, until Lorenzo got the upper hand and drove his fist into Delano's face once, twice, 3 times. Delano crumpled. Lorenzo stood over him, breathing hard, knuckles bloody. For a moment, Scarlett thought he might keep going, might beat Delano until there was nothing left. Then he stepped back, turned to her. "We're done," he said. Scarlett nodded, legs shaking. "We're done." Lorenzo pulled out his phone, made a call. "It's over. Clean it up." He crossed to Scarlett, hands going to her face, checking her over. "You okay?" "I threw a paperweight at a man with a gun. I'm the opposite of okay." His mouth twitched, almost a smile. "You saved our lives." "You would have done the same." "I did. Multiple times." Lorenzo's thumb brushed her cheek. "We make a good team. We make a terrifying team." "Same thing." Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Lorenzo's people flooded in, armed, efficient, taking control. They hauled Delano to his feet, zip-tied his hands, dragged him out without ceremony. One of them approached Lorenzo. "Building's secure. What do you want us to do with the others?" "Let them go, except Cross. Put him in a car. Drop him at a hospital." Lorenzo's expression hardened. "And make sure he understands that if I ever see him again, I won't miss next time." The man nodded and disappeared. Lorenzo turned back to Scarlett. "Let's get out of here." What? They drove in silence for the first 20 minutes. Scarlett sat in the back of the SUV, hands pressed between her knees, watching the warehouse disappear in the side mirror. Smoke rose from somewhere inside. One of Lorenzo's people cleaning up, she assumed, erasing evidence, making it look like it had never happened. "Where are we going?" she finally asked. "Somewhere safe. For real this time." Lorenzo's gaze stayed fixed on the road ahead. "I have a place outside the city. No one knows about it. We can lay low until this blows over. And then? And then we figure out what happens next." Scarlett's chest tightened. "Lorenzo, we need to talk." "I know. Really talk. About everything." "I know." He glanced at her and the exhaustion in his eyes was bone deep. "But not tonight. Tonight we just survive." She wanted to argue, to demand answers, explanations, some kind of closure. But he was right. They'd been running on adrenaline and desperation for hours, and eventually the crash would come. "Okay," she said quietly. "Not tonight." The city gave way to suburbs, then open road. Trees lined the highway, dark shapes against a darker sky. Scarlett's eyelids grew heavy. She fought it at first, but Lorenzo's voice cut through the silence, soft and certain. "Sleep, I've got you." She let her eyes close. And for the first time in what felt like forever, she believed him. Scarlett woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. She sat up slowly, taking in her surroundings. A bedroom, modest, clean, nothing like the penthouse or the safe house cabin. This felt lived in, real. She found Lorenzo in the kitchen, pouring 2 cups of coffee. He looked different in daylight, older, more worn, the bruises on his face standing out in stark relief. "Morning," he said. "Morning." She accepted the coffee he offered, wrapping her hands around the warm ceramic. "Where are we?" "About 2 hours north. This place belonged to my mother. Left it to me when she died." Scarlett blinked. "You never mentioned your mother." "There's a lot I never mentioned." Lorenzo leaned against the counter, studying her. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck. You?" "Same." He took a sip of coffee, then set the cup down. "We should talk." "Now?" "Now." Scarlett's pulse kicked up. She set her own cup aside, crossing her arms. "Okay, talk." Lorenzo ran a hand through his hair, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncertain. "I don't know how to make this right." "Start with the truth." "The truth is, I watched you for 6 months before I ever spoke to you, studied you, learned your patterns, your routines, the people in your life. I saw Evan's betrayal and your family's indifference, and I thought, Here's someone I can use. Someone vulnerable enough to trust me if I played it right. Each word landed like a blow. Scarlett forced herself to stay still, to listen. But then I actually met you, Lorenzo continued, and you weren't what I expected. You were angry and sharp and so much stronger than you gave yourself credit for. And somewhere between the penthouse and the warehouse, between watching you stand up to Delano and throw a paperweight at a man with a gun, I stopped seeing you as a tool and started seeing you as... He stopped, jaw clenching. As what? As the only thing I've ever wanted to protect more than my own life. Scarlett's throat tightened. That doesn't fix the lies. I know. Or the manipulation. I know. So where does that leave us? Lorenzo met her gaze, and the raw honesty in his eyes nearly broke her. Wherever you want. If you want to walk away, I'll make sure you're safe. New identity, new city, enough money to start over. No strings, no contact. And if I don't want that, then we figure out how to build something real. No lies, no games, just us. Scarlett's chest ached. She wanted to say yes, wanted to let herself believe that they could salvage this. But the folder was still burned into her brain, and trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt in a single conversation. I need time, she said finally. Take it. And space. Lorenzo's expression flickered. Pain, maybe, or resignation. How much? I don't know, but I can't be here right now. With you. I need to think. He nodded slowly. I'll have someone drive you wherever you want to go. Lorenzo, it's okay, Scarlett. His voice was rough but steady. I lied to you, manipulated you, used you. You don't owe me anything. Not forgiveness, not another chance. Nothing. Tears burned behind her eyes. She blinked them back, refusing to let them fall. I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I can forgive myself. Lorenzo crossed to her, stopping just close enough that she could feel the heat of him. But I meant what I said. You're the only thing I've ever wanted to protect more than my own life. So if walking away is what keeps you safe, from me, from this world, from everything, then that's what I'll let you do. Scarlett looked up at him, and for a moment she let herself remember what it felt like to trust him. To believe that someone saw her and chose her and meant it. Then she stepped back. I'll call you, she said, when I'm ready. Okay. Don't wait for me. I will anyway. She wanted to argue, to tell him to move on, to find someone else, to stop carrying the weight of her broken trust. But the words wouldn't come, so she just nodded, turned, walked out of the kitchen and out of the house and into the waiting car without looking back. And as they pulled away, Scarlett let herself cry. Not for Lorenzo, not for herself, but for the woman she'd been before all of this started, the one who'd believed love was supposed to save you, instead of destroy you. 3 months passed like water through a sieve, too fast to hold on to, too slow to forget. Scarlett rented a studio apartment on the east side of the city, far enough from the penthouse and her family's neighborhood that she could breathe without feeling watched. The walls were thin, the pipes rattled every morning at 6, and the view was a brick wall 3 feet from her window. But it was hers. Paid for with freelance work she'd hustled for, no one's money but her own funding the security deposit and first month's rent. She'd blocked her mother's number after the 14th voicemail, Maya's after the 9th. Evan was in a hospital somewhere, then a safe house, then gone, vanished like smoke, and Scarlett didn't ask where, didn't want to know. Lorenzo kept his word. No calls, no messages, no midnight knocks on her door. But his absence was a presence all its own. She felt it in the empty space beside her when she woke, in the silence that used to be filled with his low voice explaining things she didn't ask about, in the way her hand would reach for her phone a dozen times a day before she remembered there was no one on the other end worth calling. Work became her anchor. She took every project that came her way, logo redesigns for startups that would fold in 6 months, website mock-ups for local businesses, branding packages for clients who haggled over every dollar. The money was inconsistent, but it was clean, no blood on it, no lies woven into the invoices. On a Tuesday morning in late autumn, Scarlett's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her. Hello, Miss Hayes? The voice was male, professional, unfamiliar. My name is David Brennan. I'm an attorney representing Lorenzo Moretti. Do you have a moment? Her stomach dropped. What happened? Is he... Mr. Moretti is fine, but there's a matter that requires your attention. Could you meet me this afternoon? My office is downtown. Scarlett's hand tightened around the phone. What kind of matter? I'd prefer to discuss it in person. Would 2 o'clock work? Every instinct screamed at her to say no, to hang up, to keep the distance she'd fought so hard to build. But the part of her that still dreamed about Lorenzo's hands in her hair and his voice in the dark wouldn't let her. I'll be there, she said. The law office was glass and steel, the kind of place that charged by the minute just for breathing its air. Scarlett gave her name at the front desk, and a receptionist with perfect teeth led her down a hallway to a conference room. David Brennan stood when she entered. Mid-50s, graying at the temples, expensive suit that fit like armor. He extended a hand. Miss Hayes, thank you for coming. Scarlett shook it briefly, then sat. What's this about? Brennan settled into the chair across from her, opening a leather portfolio. Mr. Moretti has instructed me to transfer certain assets into your name. I've been asked to facilitate that process. Her pulse spiked. I don't want his money. It's not his money. Technically, it's yours. Brennan slid a document across the table. These are accounts that were opened in your name 3 weeks ago. Mr. Moretti funded them initially, but the transfers were structured so that legal ownership passes to you immediately upon acceptance. Scarlett stared at the paper. Numbers swam in front of her eyes. 6 figures, then 7. I don't understand. Mr. Moretti anticipated you might refuse a direct gift, so he structured this as restitution. Compensation for the danger his actions placed you in, the disruption to your life, and the emotional distress caused by his deception. Brennan's expression was carefully neutral. He's also included a property deed, a small house upstate, paid in full, no strings. No strings, Scarlett repeated, voice flat. Except the ones I can't see. There are no conditions attached to these transfers, Miss Hayes. You're free to accept or refuse. If you refuse, the funds will be donated to charities of your choosing, and the property will be sold with proceeds going to the same. Scarlett's hands shook. She pressed them flat against the table. Why now? It's been 3 months. Mr. Moretti wanted to give you time before approaching you with this. He believed, and I'm quoting here, that you'd throw it back in his face if he tried too soon. Despite everything, Scarlett felt her mouth twitch, almost a smile. He's not wrong. So I've been told. Brennan pulled out another document. There's also this. It was a letter, sealed envelope, her name written in Lorenzo's precise handwriting across the front. He asked that I give this to you regardless of your decision about the assets, Brennan said. You don't have to read it now, or ever, but it's yours if you want it. Scarlett stared at the envelope like it might explode. Can I think about this? Of course. Take as much time as you need. Brennan stood, straightening his tie. My contact information is on the card attached to the portfolio. When you've made a decision, call me. He left her alone in the conference room with the documents and the letter. Scarlett sat there for a long time, just breathing. Then she picked up the envelope, slid her finger under the seal, and pulled out a single sheet of paper. The handwriting was Lorenzo's. No preamble, no apology, just truth. Scarlett, by the time you read this, you'll have already decided whether to hate me forever or just for a very long time. Either way, I deserve it. Deserve. The money isn't an apology. Money can't fix what I broke. It's insurance. So you never have to depend on anyone who'll use it against you. So you can walk away from anyone who doesn't deserve you, including me, without wondering how you'll pay rent. The house is selfish. I bought it hoping that someday you might let me visit. Sit on the porch with you, drink coffee, and not talk about the past. But if that never happens, at least you'll have a place that's yours, where no one can find you unless you want them to. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for another chance. I just want you to know that every day since you walked out of that house, I've thought about what I'd say if I saw you again. And every day I come up empty. Because there's nothing I can say that changes what I did. But if I could, I'd tell you this. You were never a tool, never collateral, never a means to an end. You were the first person in 20 years who made me want to be something other than what I am. and losing you was the price I paid for being too much of a coward to tell you the truth before it was too late. I hope you take the money. I hope you take the house. I hope you build a life so good that you forget I was ever part of it. But if you don't forget, if some part of you still remembers what it felt like before everything went wrong, my number hasn't changed." L. Scarlett read it twice, then a third time. Then she folded it carefully, slid it back into the envelope, and pressed her palms against her eyes until she saw stars. She didn't cry. She was done crying. But she sat there until the receptionist knocked softly and asked if she needed anything. "No," Scarlett said. "I'm fine." She wasn't, but she would be. But she basically. 2 weeks later, Scarlett drove upstate to see the house. It was small. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen that opened onto a living room with a fireplace, hardwood floors that creaked in all the right places. The porch wrapped around the front, overlooking a yard that needed mowing and a driveway that needed repaving. It was perfect. Scarlett walked through every room, running her fingers over walls and windowsills, imagining what it would look like with furniture, with art on the walls, with a life built inside it that had nothing to do with Lorenzo Moretti or Richard Delano or anyone who'd ever made her feel small. She stood on the porch as the sun set, hands wrapped around a cup of gas station coffee, and made a decision. She pulled out her phone, dialed. Lorenzo answered on the second ring. "Scarlett?" Just her name. But the way he said it, rough, like he'd been holding his breath for 3 months, made her chest tighten. "I got the house," she said. "Do you like it?" "I hate that I like it." A pause. Then quietly, "I'm sorry." "I know." Scarlett closed her eyes. "I read your letter." And I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I even want to try." Her voice cracked. "But I also don't know how to stop thinking about you." Lorenzo's breath hitched. "Scarlett, don't say anything that'll make this harder." She opened her eyes, staring out at the yard, at the trees turning gold and red in the fading light. "I need more time. But I wanted you to know that I'm keeping the house and the money, not because I forgive you, but because you're right. I deserve to never be dependent on anyone again." "You do. And maybe," she stopped, swallowing hard, "maybe someday, if you still want to sit on this porch and drink coffee, I'll let you." "I'll want to. Don't wait for me, Lorenzo." "You keep saying that. I keep not listening." Despite everything, Scarlett smiled. "You're impossible." "So are you. It's why this works." "This doesn't work. This is a disaster." "Best kind." His voice softened. "Thank you for calling. Don't make me regret it." "I'll try not to." Scarlett ended the call before he could say anything else. Before she could say anything else. She stood on the porch until the sun disappeared completely and the stars came out, cold and bright and indifferent. Then she went inside, locked the door, and started making a list of everything she'd need to turn this house into a home. Okay. 6 months later, Scarlett opened a gallery show in the city. It wasn't big, just a pop-up space in a converted warehouse. 12 pieces she'd been working on in the house's second bedroom that she'd turned into a studio. Abstract work mostly, dark colors bleeding into light, sharp edges softening into curves. Pieces that felt like rage and grief and hope all tangled together. She titled the show After. People came. Not many, but enough. A few pieces sold. An art blogger wrote a review that used words like visceral and unflinching. Scarlett read it 3 times and felt something that might have been pride. She was packing up the last of the unsold work when she felt him, turned. Lorenzo stood near the entrance, hands in his pockets, wearing jeans and a dark shirt that made him look almost normal, almost like someone who didn't have blood on his hands and bodies in his past. Their eyes met across the room. Scarlett's heart slammed against her ribs. She hadn't seen him in 9 months, hadn't heard his voice except for that one phone call. And now he was here, in her space, looking at her like she was something precious and breakable. She crossed to him slowly, stopped a few feet away. "You came. You invited me. I sent the invite to 300 people. I didn't think you'd actually show." Lorenzo's mouth curved. "I've been watching your website, saw the announcement. Thought I'd take a chance. Stalking me again? Learning from past mistakes? Scarlett almost laughed. Almost. What do you think? Of the show? Lorenzo glanced around, taking in the paintings, the stark white walls, the industrial lighting. I think you took everything that happened and turned it into something that matters. I think you're braver than you give yourself credit for. His gaze came back to her. And I think you look happy. I'm getting there. Good. He shifted, pulling something from his jacket pocket, a small envelope. This is for you. Scarlett took it, frowning. Inside was a single key on a plain metal ring. What's this? The penthouse. I'm selling it. Thought you might want to walk through one last time before I do. Take anything you left behind. Say goodbye properly. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. Or just burn the whole place down. I won't judge. She stared at the key. Why would you sell it? Because every room reminds me of you, and I'm tired of living in a museum. Scarlett's throat tightened. Where will you go? I bought a place near yours, 2 miles down the road, small, quiet. He paused. I'm trying something new, something that doesn't involve looking over my shoulder every 5 minutes. Lorenzo Moretti, going legitimate. Never thought I'd see the day. I'm still working on it. Turns out it's harder to go straight than I thought. His expression softened. But I'm trying, for what it's worth. It's worth something. They stood there for a moment, the silence stretching between them like a tightrope. Then Lorenzo took a breath. Can I ask you something? Depends on the question. Do you still hate me? Scarlett considered. Some days. And the other days? I'm working on it. Lorenzo's smile was small, sad. That's fair. Is it true? Scarlett asked. What you said in the letter, that I was the first person who made you want to be something different. Yes. And now? Now you're the only person I want to be better for. Even if you never forgive me, even if I never get another chance. He stepped closer, and she could smell the faint trace of cologne, something familiar and devastating. I meant what I said, Scarlett. You were never a tool. You were the best decision I ever made, and the worst mistake I ever committed. And I'd do it all again if it meant getting to know you. Her chest ached. That's a terrible thing to say. I know, but it's true. Scarlett looked down at the key in her hand. I'll think about the penthouse. Take your time. And Lorenzo? Yeah? Thank you for coming. She met his gaze, steady and clear. It means something. You mean something. He turned to leave, and Scarlett's hand shot out, catching his wrist. He stopped, looked back. 2 miles down the road, she asked. Give or take. That's close. Too close? She released his wrist. I don't know yet. Lorenzo's smile was genuine this time, reaching his eyes. Let me know when you figure it out. He left. Scarlett watched him go, key still clutched in her hand, and felt the weight of 9 months of silence start to lift. Scarlett went to the penthouse 3 days later. The building looked the same. The security guard nodded at her like she'd never left. The elevator ride up was silent, familiar, suffocating. The door opened onto empty rooms. Lorenzo had cleared everything out. Furniture gone, art removed, even the bar dismantled. Just wide open space and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a city that looked smaller from up here than it felt down below. Scarlett walked through slowly, footsteps echoing. She stopped in the guest room where she'd slept that first night. Remembered lying in the dark, terrified and electric, wondering what the hell she'd gotten herself into. She'd been so different then, smaller, quieter, willing to accept scraps of attention from people who didn't deserve her time. Now she owned a house, had money in the bank, had built something with her own hands that people paid for. She wasn't the same woman who'd lied about being with a mafia boss just to see the look on her ex's face. She was better. Scarlett crossed to the main room, stood at the windows. The city sprawled beneath her, a million lives intersecting and diverging and colliding. Somewhere down there, Evan was rebuilding. Maya was planning a wedding that Scarlett wouldn't attend. Her mother was telling anyone who'd listen that her eldest daughter had lost her mind. And Lorenzo was 2 miles down the road from her house, trying to be someone new. Scarlett pulled out her phone, typed a message. I'm at the penthouse. Can you come? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. On my way. She waited by the windows, watching traffic crawl below until she heard the elevator chime. Lorenzo stepped out, and for a moment they just looked at each other. Then Scarlett spoke. "I've been thinking," she said. About? About what it means to forgive someone. Whether it's even possible after everything. She turned to face him fully. And I realized something. What's that? I don't know if I can forgive you for lying, for manipulating me, for making me feel like I mattered when I was just part of a strategy. Her voice was steady, clear. But I can forgive you for being human, for making a choice you thought was right and realizing too late it wasn't, for trying to protect me even when it meant destroying us. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. Scarlett, let me finish. She crossed to him, stopping close enough to see the flecks of gold in his eyes. I've spent 9 months trying to hate you, trying to convince myself that what we had was fake, that it didn't matter, that I was better off without you. And I was lying to myself just as much as you lied to me. Her hand came up, fingers brushing his jaw. I don't know if what we had was real. I don't know if it can be salvaged, but I know that I'm tired of running from it. Lorenzo's hand covered hers, pressing it against his face. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to try. Not to go back to what we were, but to build something new, something honest. She paused. If you're willing to do the work, I'll do anything. Then prove it. Scarlett stepped back, breaking the contact. You said you bought a place near mine, 2 miles down the road. Yes. Then that's where you stay. You don't push. You don't show up uninvited. You don't make assumptions about what this is or what it could be. Her voice softened. But if you want to have coffee on my porch on Sunday mornings, I won't say no. Lorenzo's expression cracked, something raw and relieved flooding through. Sunday mornings. And maybe dinners eventually. How eventual? I'll let you know. He nodded slowly. I can work with that. And Lorenzo? Scarlett met his gaze, unflinching. If you lie to me again, about anything, no matter how small, we're done. No second chances, no explanations, just done. Understood. I mean it. I know you do. Lorenzo stepped closer, hands coming up to frame her face. I won't lie to you again. I swear on everything I have left. You don't have much left. I have you. If you'll let me. Scarlett's breath caught. She should have pulled away. Should have kept the boundaries firm, the distance safe. But his hands were warm and his eyes were honest, and she was so tired of being afraid. One more thing, she said. Anything. Kiss me. Right now. And make it count. Because if this doesn't work, if we try and fail and it all falls apart again, I want to remember what it felt like when we weren't broken. Lorenzo didn't hesitate. His mouth found hers, and it was nothing like the kiss in the penthouse all those months ago. That one had been desperate, hungry, born from adrenaline and fear. This one was slower, deeper, a promise instead of a claim. Scarlett's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and he made a low sound in the back of his throat that sent heat flooding through her. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. Okay, Scarlett whispered. Okay? Sunday mornings, coffee on the porch. She stepped back, smoothing her shirt, trying to steady herself. But you bring the coffee, the good stuff, not gas station sludge. Lorenzo's smile was slow, genuine. Deal. The first Sunday, Lorenzo showed up at 8 with 2 lattes from the coffee shop in town and a box of pastries he'd driven 40 minutes to get. They sat on the porch and talked about safe things, the weather, the gallery show, his new place, and how he was learning to cook because takeout got old fast. The second Sunday, he brought coffee and asked if she wanted help fixing the porch railing that had come loose in a storm. By the 5th Sunday, they'd stopped pretending the coffee was the reason he kept coming back. Scarlett told him about the commissioned piece a client had requested, a mural for a community center downtown. Lorenzo told her about the nonprofit he was starting, something about helping kids in the city get access to education and resources without getting pulled into the life he'd left behind. Redemption Project? Scarlett asked, eyebrow raised. Something like that. Lorenzo set his mug down, leaning back in his chair. Turns out it's hard to sleep when you've spent 20 years making choices that hurt people. Figured I should try making different ones. That's growth. That's desperation. He glanced at her. But I'll take it. They didn't talk about the past. Not directly. But it hung between them anyway, a third presence neither could ignore. On the ninth Sunday, Scarlett asked the question that had been burning in her chest for months. Do you regret it? Meeting me? Lorenzo was quiet for a long time. Then, I regret how I met you, the lies I told, the way I used you. He turned to face her. But I don't regret knowing you. Even if I never get more than Sunday mornings, I don't regret that. Scarlett's throat tightened. I don't know if that's enough. It's more than I deserve. Maybe. She looked out at the yard, at the trees she'd planted last month that were just starting to take root. But I'm not sure I want to keep measuring things by what we deserve. We've both been punished enough. So what do we measure by? What we want. What we're willing to work for. Scarlett met his gaze. And whether we're brave enough to risk it. Lorenzo's hand found hers, fingers lacing through hers. Are you? I don't know. Ask me again in a month. He smiled. I will. Us. A month became 2. 2 became 4. Sunday mornings stretched into weeknight dinners. Dinners turned into late nights on the porch, talking until the stars came out and the temperature dropped enough that Lorenzo would drape his jacket over her shoulders without asking. They moved slowly, carefully, like 2 people walking through a minefield, testing every step before committing. Scarlett introduced him to her work, brought him to the studio, showed him pieces in progress, let him see the parts of her that weren't polished or ready for public consumption. Lorenzo introduced her to his past. Not all of it. Some things were too dark, too heavy to carry into the light. But enough. Enough that she understood where he'd come from and why he'd made the choices he had. They fought twice. Once about a client of his who made Scarlett's skin crawl, someone Lorenzo swore was legitimate, but whose eyes told a different story. Once about a piece Scarlett had sold to a buyer Lorenzo recognized from his old life. Both times they walked away angry. Both times they came back the next day and talked it through until the anger dissolved into understanding. It wasn't perfect. It was messy and complicated. And some days Scarlett still woke up wondering if she was making a mistake. But it was real. And that was more than she'd ever had before. 9 months after the gallery show, Scarlett woke to sunlight streaming through her bedroom window and the smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen. She pulled on a robe, padded downstairs, and found Lorenzo at the stove, making pancakes. You have a key now? She asked, leaning against the doorframe. You gave me one last week. Said I could use it for emergencies. Pancakes are an emergency? I'd argue they're essential. He flipped one expertly, glancing over his shoulder. Morning? Morning. Scarlett crossed to the coffee pot, poured herself a cup. You're here early. Couldn't sleep. Why? Lorenzo turned off the stove, plated the pancakes, and brought them to the small kitchen table. He sat, gesturing for her to do the same. Scarlett sat, suddenly wary. What's going on? I need to tell you something. Her stomach dropped. If this is you confessing another lie, it's not. Lorenzo's hands were steady, but his eyes were serious. Delano's dead. The words took a moment to land. What? Heart attack 3 days ago. I just got confirmation this morning. Lorenzo leaned back, exhaling slowly. It's over, Scarlett. The war, the threats, all of it. He's gone. Scarlett set her coffee down, hands shaking. Are you sure? I'm sure. And Evan? Disappeared. New identity, new city, new life. He won't bother you again. She stared at him, trying to process. So we're safe. We're safe. Relief flooded through her so fast it was almost painful. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I needed to be sure. And because I didn't want you to think that's why I've been coming here. Why I've been... He stopped, jaw working. Why you've been what? Lorenzo met her gaze. Falling in love with you. Again. Still. I don't know which. Scarlett's breath caught. Lorenzo, I know we said slow. I know we're still figuring this out, but you asked me to be honest, so here it is. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. I love you, Scarlett. I've loved you since the moment you threw that paperweight at Delano and decided you were done being afraid. And I'll keep loving you whether you love me back or not. Whether we ever become more than Sunday mornings, or whether this is all we ever get. Her chest ached. That's a lot to put on someone over pancakes. I know, but I'm done waiting for the perfect moment. This is it. You in your kitchen, me making breakfast, both of us alive and safe and here. His hand reached across the table, palm up. So I'm asking, not because Delano's dead or because the danger's over, but because I want to know if you feel it too. Scarlett looked at his hand, at the scars across his knuckles, at the steady way he waited, not pushing, just offering. Then she placed her hand in his. I feel it, she said quietly. I have for months. Maybe since the beginning, underneath all the lies and fear and anger. But feeling it and trusting it are different things. I know. And I need you to understand that I might always have moments where I doubt, where I wonder if this is real or if I'm just fooling myself again. I can live with that. Can you? Scarlett. Lorenzo's grip tightened. I lied to you once, and it almost destroyed us. I won't make that mistake again. So if you need reassurance, ask. If you need space, take it. If you need proof that this is real, I'll spend the rest of my life giving it to you. He paused. But don't walk away because you're afraid. We've both been through too much to let fear win now. Scarlett's throat tightened. She thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, sitting in that restaurant, surrounded by people who'd made her feel invisible, throwing out Lorenzo's name like a grenade just to feel something. She thought about the woman she'd become, the one who owned a house and built art and didn't flinch when life got hard. And she realized that somewhere between the lies and the truth, she'd found the thing she'd been searching for all along. Herself. Okay, she said. Lorenzo blinked. Okay? Okay. I love you too. Okay, I want to try. Not slow, not careful, just real. She stood, pulling him up with her. But if you ever lie to me again, I know. We're done. No second chances. Lorenzo's hands framed her face. I won't. Promise? I promise. Scarlett kissed him, long and deep and full of every emotion she'd been too afraid to name. When they finally broke apart, they were both smiling. The pancakes are cold, she said. I'll make more. Or we could skip breakfast. Lorenzo's eyebrows rose. Scarlett Hayes, are you propositioning me? I'm saying I'm tired of waiting for things to be perfect. I'm saying I want you. Here, now. No more Sunday mornings, no more distance. She stepped closer, hands sliding up his chest. Unless you're not ready. He kissed her again, deeper this time, hands tangling in her hair. I've been ready since the moment you walked into that restaurant and decided to burn your life down. Then stop talking and take me upstairs. He did. 18 months later, Scarlett stood on the same porch, watching the sun set over the yard she'd spent a year cultivating into something that felt like home. Lorenzo's arms wrapped around her from behind, chin resting on her shoulder. You're thinking too loud. I'm thinking about how different everything is. Better or worse? Better, terrifying, both. She leaned back into him. I got a call from Maya today. Lorenzo's arms tightened slightly. And? She's pregnant. Wants to reconcile. Says she's sorry for everything. What did you say? I said I'd think about it. Scarlett turned in his arms, looking up at him. Part of me wants to tell her to go to hell, but another part wants to give her a chance. Yeah. Lorenzo brushed a strand of hair from her face. What do you want to do? I don't know. She hurt me. They all did. And I'm not sure I can trust them not to do it again. Then don't. Not yet. His hand settled on her hips. But maybe let her try. See if she means it. You don't owe her forgiveness, Scarlett. But you also don't owe her your anger. When did you get so wise? When I fell in love with a woman who taught me that people can change if they want to badly enough. Scarlett's chest tightened. I love you. I know. Lorenzo smiled. I love you too. They stood there as the sun disappeared completely, wrapped in each other, the past finally loosening its grip enough to let the future take shape. Scarlett didn't know if she'd forgive Maya. Didn't know if she'd ever speak to her mother again. Didn't know if the art career would last, or if Lorenzo's nonprofit would thrive, or if they'd make it another year without falling apart. But she knew that for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of the answers. Because whatever came next, she'd face it as the woman she'd fought to become. Strong, whole, unbreakable. and loved. 2 years after the restaurant, Scarlett opened a second gallery show. This one was bigger. A real gallery in the arts district, 3 rooms of work that she'd poured her soul into, pieces that told a story, the before, the during, the after, the breaking and the rebuilding. The opening night was packed, critics, collectors, friends she'd made in the 2 years since she'd stopped running and started living. Lorenzo stood in the corner, watching her move through the crowd with a confidence that still made his chest tight. She'd changed so much from the woman who'd lied about being with him just to feel powerful for 5 seconds. Now she didn't need to lie. She was powerful all on her own. Scarlett caught his eye across the room, smiled, mouthed, "Thank you." He shook his head, mouthed back, "You did this." She had. And watching her own it, watching her stand in a room full of people who saw her and valued her and chose her, was better than anything Lorenzo had ever built with blood and fear. At the end of the night, after the last guest left and the gallery owner locked up, Scarlett and Lorenzo walked back to the car hand in hand. "Good night?" he asked. "The best." She stopped, turning to face him. "I've been thinking about something." "Should I be worried?" "Maybe." Scarlett took a breath. "Move in with me." Lorenzo blinked. "What?" "You're at the house 4 nights a week anyway. Your place is just gathering dust, and She paused, searching for the right words. "I don't want to keep pretending we're taking things slow when we both know we're already all in." "Scarlett, I'm not asking you to marry me. I'm not asking for forever. I'm just asking if you want to wake up in the same bed every morning instead of just the mornings you stay over." Her hand found his. "What do you say?" Lorenzo pulled her close, forehead pressing against hers. "I say yes. I've been waiting for you to ask." "Liar, you were going to wait another 6 months." "Probably." He kissed her softly. "But I'm glad you didn't make me." They drove back to the house, their house now, and stayed up until dawn, talking about logistics and furniture, and whether Lorenzo's terrible taste in art would ruin the aesthetic Scarlett had built. And somewhere in the early morning light, wrapped in blankets on the porch, Scarlett realized she'd found the thing she'd been searching for since the moment Evan walked out. Not revenge, not validation, not even love, though that was part of it. She'd found herself, and she was never letting that go again. 3 years after the restaurant, on a cold Sunday morning in November, Scarlett woke to find Lorenzo already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring out the window. "You okay?" she asked. He looked back, and the expression on his face made her sit up. "I got a letter yesterday, from my lawyer." Her pulse spiked. "What kind of letter?" "The kind that says all my old business is officially closed. Accounts settled. Investigations dropped. I'm free, Scarlett. Completely. No more looking over my shoulder. No more wondering when the past will catch up." Relief and something else, something fierce and protective, flooded through her. "That's good." "Yeah." Lorenzo ran a hand through his hair. "It's good. But I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. For something to go wrong. For this to fall apart." He turned to face her fully, and I realized this morning that I'm terrified. Of what? Of losing you. Of fucking this up. Of waking up one day and finding out you've realized you deserve better than a guy who spent 20 years being the villain. Scarlett reached for him, pulling him back onto the bed. "Lorenzo, look at me." He did. "You're not the villain anymore. You haven't been for a long time." Her hand cupped his jaw. "And I didn't choose you because I thought you were perfect. I chose you because you're real, because you've done the work. Because when I look at you, I don't see the man who lied to me. I see the man who spent 3 years proving every day that he meant it when he said he'd never do it again." His eyes closed. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway." She kissed him softly. "So stop waiting for the other shoe to drop and just be here. With me. Now." Lorenzo's arms wrapped around her, pulling her close. "I can do that." "Good." Scarlett settled against his chest, listening to the steady thrum of his heartbeat. "Because I'm not going anywhere." They lay there as the sun rose, 2 people who'd been broken and rebuilt, scarred and healed, and somehow found each other in the wreckage. It wasn't a fairy tale. There was no happily ever after, because life didn't work that way. But it was real and honest and theirs. And that was more than enough. 5 years after the restaurant, Scarlett Hayes stood in the kitchen of the house Lorenzo had bought her, watching snow fall through the window, and thought about the woman she used to be, the one who'd sat at that table, surrounded by family who didn't see her, and lied about being with a mafia boss just to feel powerful for 5 seconds. She thought about the fear, the anger, the desperate need to be seen. And she thought about the woman she'd become, the one who ran a successful art practice, who'd reconciled carefully with Maya and kept her mother at arm's length, who'd built a life that was messy and complicated and entirely her own. Lorenzo walked in, carrying groceries, and kissed her temple as he passed. "You're doing it again." "Doing what?" "Thinking too loud." He set the bags on the counter, started unpacking. "What's on your mind?" "Just remembering where we started. And I'm glad we got here, even with all the pain, even with all the mistakes." She turned to face him. "I wouldn't change it." Lorenzo crossed to her, hands settling on her hips. "Not even the lies? Especially not the lies, because they taught me to recognize the truth." Scarlett's arms wrapped around his neck. "And the truth is I love you. I trust you. And I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. With a reformed criminal in a house in the middle of nowhere? With a man who sees me, who chooses me, who built a new life because the old one wasn't good enough." She kissed him. "Yeah, exactly here." Lorenzo smiled against her mouth. "You're sentimental today." "I'm grateful today." "Same thing." "Maybe." They stayed like that, wrapped in each other, while snow fell outside and the world kept turning. And Scarlett thought about the lie that had started everything, the truth that had almost destroyed it, and the love that had saved them both. She'd walked into that restaurant invisible, overlooked, desperate. She'd walked out of Lorenzo's world broken, furious, determined. And now, 5 years, 1,000 mistakes, and a million moments of choosing to stay later, she was exactly who she'd always needed to be. Not someone's daughter, not someone's ex, not someone's tool or victim or second choice. Just Scarlett Hayes, artist, survivor, woman who'd burned her life down and built something better from the ashes. And that was the best revenge of all.